Ninth meeting. Can we get a roll call? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Are we okay? Okay.
Okay, roll call. Chair Carlson,
Present?
Vice Chair Bauer,
Present.
Commissioner Callahan,
Present.
Commissioner Kazan,
Present.
Commissioner Kilroy,
Here.
Commissioner Light,
Present.
Commissioner Walters.
Here.
All members accounted for. We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay, and Commissioner Kazan, can I ask you to lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So much
nice
easier
to
than
be doing that.
Zoom.
Good job. Okay. Shall we approve the order of agenda? Any issues, anything anyone want to move around?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. Motion passes. Let's go on to blue folder items, additional backup materials. I know we have 2 items supporting further agenda items. I don't think we have anything else.
There was one other comment. So there's 2 presentations and there was 1 letter submitted as part of the blue folder.
That's right, yep. Also in support of one of the agenda items. Okay, so I think we're covered on blue folder items. Anything on consent calendar?
We need a motion to approve blue folder items, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, okay. Thanks for keeping me honest.
No worries.
I don't remember how to do this in person. I've got a cheat sheet at home. Okay, we are up to consent calendar. Do we have any consent calendar items? Don't believe we do.
Well, we have the minutes on consent, but that's about it.
Boy, I am rusty. It's been.
Motion to approve consent calendar items.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
I'd like to pull the minutes or make comments to them.
Okay, go ahead.
So I generally agree with the minutes. I do think there's some wording that's important in there that got missed. Under the motion with regard to the educational facility, the current minutes say that the former Joe's Crab Shack site be considered, and I think the word that I used was preserving it for the educational facility. And also, you did a friendly amendment there to add in specifically the waterfront education and white sea bass and other local educational activities. And that doesn't appear in the minutes right now. So I'd like to add those to the minutes. I'd like to recommend adding those to the minutes.
So motion to approve the minutes with the amendments, or motion to approve the consent calendar with those amendments to the minutes.
I have 1 comment on the minutes as well. I don't have it pulled up right here, but the very end, referrals, the wording for my referral was summarized a little harshly. I don't want it to be misconstrued. It was to look at the Marina Way parking lot rate compliance with the rules, not looking at the leaseholder. It was just a little harsh.
Okay, so how would you rephrase that?
Referral was to look at the Marina Way parking lot rate compliance with the rules.
Okay, thank you. And Jim, regarding, I understood your first statement, changing the word to preserve, and then you added Shark Lab and waterfront education. How would you like?
And white
that?
sea bass grow out.
Okay. How'd you like that section phrased?
Preserving that area for some sort of educational opportunity, including waterfront education, white sea bass grow out, the Shark Lab, and other local activities.
Okay, I had thought those were items for consideration and not necessarily to be included by that vote.
That's such as, right?
Okay,
Well,
Thank
I
you.
mean, if you have
I-
alternate wording, I'm open
No,
to
no,
it. I just want
I-
to make sure there's specifics.
I apologize. I had missed the such as. Thanks, okay. All right,
Just a point over to Mr. Chairman, are we correcting the motion or are we redoing the motion?
We never seconded
We're
it.
Yeah,
amending the
we're
minutes.
making statements which I think will need to be supported by a rewritten motion. Because Commissioner Krazan had something to add after she started.
So the motion as written is not correct.
Yes,
That's
so
documented.
I think we are going to end up having to vote on that motion, kill it, make a second motion with this wording, and approve that one, if that makes sense.
Excuse me, my name is Vicki Kronberger. I'm Chief Deputy City Clerk, just for the record. You can actually, Commissioner Light made the motion, and Commissioner Curzon can say, I have a friendly amendment to that motion, and have her language added to it. And then if Commissioner Light accepts that amendment, then you can vote on it like that.
Okay, thanks, yeah.
You don't have to do it in two
I
motions.
wasn't sure if we'd added too much detail for a friendly amendment. Okay,
And then the minute secretary will listen to the testimony to make sure that there are no added words to it, because she can't construe meaning.
great, okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So,
So I'd like to make a friendly amendment that the notes reflect my comment for the referral should have been, look at the Marina Way parking lot rate compliance with the rules.
I accept that friendly amendment.
okay. Any other discussion on the proposed, or on the motion? Can we do, hang on, can we,
Oh, okay, now we're up, okay, great.
Are you actually making a public comment about the particular motion?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I do a lot of this parliamentary type stuff, and things started to kind of wander, maybe a bad place. I believe Commissioner Light's original intent was only to correct the minutes, not pass any new policy. They were simply incorrect in that he did use the word preserve, so he wants that right word in there. And the word white sea bass was in your amended motion, and it was simply missing. So just preserving and white sea bass, that no change, no new motions, that just is simply a correction to the minutes.
Yeah, understood, and that was my question, because it seemed like we were changing the minutes.
Right, I got a little worried when we
Okay.
started talking about new motions.
Okay, so I think we are up to a motion with a friendly amendment. Do we have a second?
Yeah. Nope. You're on.
A second.
Okay, thanks. We have a second. So, all in favor of approving the minutes with those additions,
Correction.
with the corrections, including the friendly amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, okay. All right, this is much more complicated in person because there's more to do and less screens. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. We are through, let's see, we are through the consent calendar items. Do we have any excluded consent calendar items?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Okay, we are up to public participation on non-agenda items. If any member of the public here wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda tonight, now's your time. You can have 3 minutes to speak on any topic. Anyone? Okay, do we have anyone on Zoom looking to speak on any non-agenda items? And we're checking.
For Zoom attendees, please raise your hand if you would like to participate for non-agenda items at this time. Okay.
Okay, thanks. And any e-comments on non-agenda items?
No e-comments at this time.
Great, okay, thanks. Let's see, we are up to ex parte communication. Do we have any
There aren't any. We don't have any public hearings.
Okay. No ex parte communication, and we have no public hearings. So we are skipping down to items continued from previous agendas. I don't believe we have any of those items. So we are down to item L, items for discussion prior to action. And the first one up is a discussion regarding an educational facility at the waterfront.
Thank you, thank you. So this is the first of two discussions about the waterfront. Both are going to be handled with educational facility ideas on what could be programmed within that educational facility. Our first, we've invited Dr. Chris Lowe. He's a professor and the director of the Shark Lab at Cal State Long Beach. He's going to present an oral report to the commission tonight on ideas for that educational facility, and he'll be able to field questions and comments from the commission shortly thereafter. Just real quick overview, the mission of the Shark Lab at Long Beach is to study the behavioral ecology of marine animals, emphasizing the effect of human activity on the ocean itself. And without further ado, I will introduce Chris Lowe, Dr. Chris Lowe. Here's your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. So I run the Shark Lab, and in 2018, we received funding from the state of California to expand our shark beach safety program. So that came in response basically to an increase in white sharks that we've been seeing along our coast. So we've been studying white sharks for the last 30 years, and what we've seen the last 20 years kind of shocked me, something I never expected to see. And the simple explanation as to why we're seeing more white sharks is really quite simple. We protected them in 1994. They were protected under state law. And then, of course, we banned the use of nearshore gill nets, which we found to be a really important thing, bringing back white sharks and many other species. So those two things happened in 1994, and they were kind of instrumental in the recovery of the population. But also, it was recovery of marine mammals since the 70s that have allowed the white shark population probably to really gain steam. So because marine mammals constitute a bulk of the adult diet, that's the main reason why we think the adults have come back. And the reason why I have stingrays on this figure is because that's the main thing that the juveniles eat. And for those of you who lived in Southern California know we have a lot of stingrays in our waters. So that's provided a lot of food for this population. So what we've been noticing and what we've seen over the last few years is working with all the lifeguards in California, ocean lifeguards, we've heard that there have been more sightings of white sharks along Southern California beaches. In fact, there's been a 5-fold increase in the last 10 years. We have one of the most heavily populated coastlines in the entire world in Southern California. We have about somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 million people living between Santa Barbara and San Diego, and probably one of the largest ocean recreation communities that we have in the United States, with the exclusion of maybe Florida. So as a result, we have a lot of people that are in the ocean year-round, and they're using that ocean, the same ocean that many of these sharks are using, and that puts sharks and people in close proximity together. One thing that we haven't noted is even though the white shark population is going up and more people are using our ocean than ever before, we are not seeing an increase in the number of bites. Nonetheless, when people are bitten, it does make news. And when that news goes national, we have some anecdotal data indicating the small amount of economic impact that it has. So that is the amount of data we have, not the impact. The impact we found actually is probably pretty great. And we're in the middle of a study right now looking at the economic impacts of beach closures and shark bites on California. One of the things we found with lifeguards is we had white sharks showing up at beaches, and they would be there for weeks to months, that we've now learned, and the lifeguards were trying to figure out what to do about the situation. So we've worked with all the Cal chiefs to develop procedures and protocols on what to do about sharks based on our knowledge, current knowledge of their behavior and biology. So basically what we've been able to do is give them better information that they can use to better manage beaches. So in 2018, we received $3.75 million from the state of California. Thank you. So our Shark Beach Safety Program has 3 arms. So one arm is a research arm that is to gather more information about what sharks are doing along the beaches, where are they in our nearshore waters, how much time do they spend near people, do they pose a significant risk, and then basically how do people respond to the presence of these sharks, and what kind of economic impact do they have on our economy. So in addition, we have an education program that's designed to take that science directly out to the public. We work with lifeguards. We have an education program for them, for fishers, junior lifeguards, and K through 12 students. In addition, we have a public outreach program that targets both locals and tourists. So this program has been running since 2018, but we've actually been collecting data since 2006. We were originally funded by Monterey. So what we've learned about white shark distribution is that adults typically aren't seen around Southern California beaches. They're mainly around the offshore islands and around the Central California coast, particularly in the fall and winter months. However, females come back sometime in the spring around this time of year and will start giving birth to pups. We don't know where, but we just know that those young sharks start showing up at our beaches, starting around April, and they'll be here till about October, November. So Southern California is believed to be one of the biggest nurseries for white sharks in the whole Northeast Pacific. So our beaches, places where many people are recreating, are where we see a majority of these small, young, juvenile white sharks. And they're here from about sizes of about 5.5 feet till about 9 or 10 feet when they're still juvenile at 10 feet. So to figure out where the sharks are going and where they're spending their time, we use a variety of technologies. We use satellite transmitters to track them. We use acoustic transmitters to track them. We have acoustic receivers all along our coastline that are literally 100 yards off the beach. Chairman Carslin helps us a lot with our receivers in Santa Monica Bay. We have them from basically Morro Bay down to the Mexican border and all around the Channel Islands. So we're constantly monitoring and we provide those data to lifeguards. So some of those transmitters that we put in sharks 8, 9 years ago, we're still tracking individuals, their 10-year battery lives. In addition, we can get sharks from commercial fishers that are still fishing gill nets outside 3 miles. And when they catch one, we race down to the marinas and meet the fishermen. We can get measurements from those sharks, take tissue samples, blood samples, tag them with a variety of tags, take them out, let them go and follow their movements. In some cases, we can tag sharks ourselves. We usually work with lifeguards to do this at public beaches. Those sharks we can either tag with a pole spear or just jab a tag in them. But if we can catch the shark, we can surgically implant tags that last longer. One of the challenges the lifeguards were having with our system, it takes us about a month to download all the receivers. We have over 100 receivers in the water. And we would come back to lifeguards and say, okay, 3 weeks ago, there was an 8-foot white shark at the beach. They would go, thank you, but that's not helpful. So we developed a new technology where we now have an acoustic receiver that hangs underneath a buoy. Those buoys are anchored offshore, just like our receivers are, except when they get a detection, they send the lifeguards an immediate text alert. So we've developed a software package that once they get that text alert, they can log in. Basically, they'll see something like this. We have 6 buoys along the Southern California coastline now from Santa Barbara all the way down to Coronado. And then each one of those tiles you see is like a baseball card for a shark. So some of those tags could be literally minutes ago, and then the lifeguard can click on one of those and it will give them information about where that shark was, how big it was when it was tagged, where it's been. So this technology is now used for all the lifeguards and they can see this entire network. Our goal is to get rid of more of our underwater receivers and replace them with buoys. So we have 3 reasons why we think sharks are in close to shore. Number 1, they don't know they're a white shark yet. Females get birth to them, they're completely on their own. So the number 1 reason why we think they choose our beaches is because it's safe. Water's shallower, there's fewer predators. In addition, the water's warmer right along the beach than it is further offshore. And even though they're endothermic and they can swim and keep their bodies warmer than the water, their bodies are so small when they're young, they can't hold the heat. And then because they spend weeks to months in many of these nursery habitats, they have to feed. And the number 1 thing we find in their stomachs are stingrays. So we think those are the 3 main reasons why they're at our beaches. However, what we haven't been able to figure out is what makes a hotspot beach, an aggregation beach, a hotspot, why it shifts from one year to the next. So many of you may recall, we had a nice aggregation off Manhattan Beach a few years ago, or up off Will Rogers Beach. And those hotspots have gone cool, but have gone hot again. So for example, last year and this year, we're already seeing sharks at Will Rogers again. So why that site is going hot again, we do not know. But we're using a lot of this new technology to answer that question. One of the things we're focusing on now is water temperature, which we think is an important cue for them. And we're using a lot of tools to answer that. The other question is food. So we're doing a big diet study. So we're sampling what is at these local beaches, trying to figure out how much food is there. Is that one of the reasons how they choose a beach? I've teamed up with a psychologist at Cal State Long Beach who specializes in the study of fear. And we are doing a study looking at how people perceive marine wildlife, how they perceive beach safety. So we've conducted a study that we've got over 400 respondents to a survey that takes about 40 minutes to do. And the idea there is to get at, if you know that there are white sharks at a particular beach, what is your base perception? And would you still be willing to go to that beach if there was a shark detected there yesterday or the day before, even though the lifeguards say it's okay? So we're in the middle of that study. It has never been done in the US. Another study that we're doing is looking at beach tourism. I've teamed up with an ecotourism specialist at Cal State Long Beach, and we started in-person surveys. We did 150 of those last year, targeting primarily tourists that are coming to Southern California beaches. And this is just a quick word cloud that we used. And basically that study is ongoing, but you'll notice for dislikes, sharks are very small. And for likes, actually sharks are much bigger. So if you start to use this as an indicator of what tourists are looking at when they come to their beach, or what they know, or what they perceive, this gives us a lot of information of how we need to educate not just our residents that use our waters all the time, but visitors that come. And in addition, we're also looking at an economic study. So you remember I told you briefly that, we know that shark bites, especially fatalities, have a big impact in terms of media coverage. We have some anecdotal evidence. A few years ago, a woman was bitten at Camp Pendleton in April. That made national news. I was at a Huntington Beach City Council meeting in the month of May, and I was there, the Chamber of Commerce said they lost $7 million in hotel reservations because of that news. That's anecdotal. We don't know how big those economic impacts are. With beach closures because of shark sightings, again, there's some anecdotal data that may suggest that costs the beach community up to $50,000 a day as a result of beach closures because people are going to neighboring beaches. So we're doing a study right now with one of our environmental economists. So one of the things that we want to do next with our state program is develop a tourist visitor center. So they already have one of these on Cape Cod, where they have a similar situation as we do here in Southern California. And basically, we're looking for a facility, a building on the coastline. We're looking for about 5,000 to 10,000 square foot of space with access to docks. And the reason is because you can share a lot of that electronic technology that we have with the public that comes to this visitor center without them actually having water. But in addition, we want to couple that with an education center. So we have an education program that's run through Cal State Long Beach right now. We want to be able to move that out to the public. So the goal there is by using that center as both tourism and for education for locals, we can provide interpretive signage, we can provide variety of stuff. Sure. Thanks. Can you? Yeah. So the nice thing about this is that technology that we're using across the state can be seen at this center. We can educate a lot of the people that are coming to our state about shark safety and many other beach-related issues. So right now, that program is being developed. Like I said, we're looking for a venue. We're looking for a place to take this. There would be a K through 12 education program associated with that. That would be a traveling program that would enable us to go out to schools with on-site field trip programs as well. We want to have space so we could have some split classroom space in that venue, smart screens, classroom materials, that sort of thing. And then staffing, we're looking at about 10 staff, a director, marketing, merchandise, public relations, and educators. So this is what we're moving towards. Based on everything that we've done, we're trying to get more state funding to keep us going for another 5 years. This would be a public-private endeavor. We would try to get some private funding to also support a facility like this.
Thanks a lot. Let me see if I can get my mic to work. So thanks for the patience with the electronics. This all got upgraded during the last couple of years. This is our first night using it. So hopefully it's working well out there in Zoom land too. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with the space we've proposed. We have a building now. Maybe it's that same building. Maybe that building gets rebuilt, turned into something else. And there are a few different groups potentially using it, potentially sharing it. How would you feel about, working with a shared space like that?
I think that's doable. What we'd have to look at is, the exhibiting sort of part and then the education sort of part. And I think, the education part could easily be shared. The exhibit part might be a little bit more difficult to do that with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, any questions from the commission? And we don't have an electronic system yet, so it's just going to be hands. Commissioner Kilroy, go ahead.
So a dirty word, cost and funding. I was kind of curious. You got a grant from the state. You're also looking at private sponsorships. Are you looking at paying for the state space, market rate? Are you looking at the space being donated to you? Obviously, your program brings something, a of value to the harbor and has other tangible monetary benefits, but, it's a dirty question, but
And that's a realistic one. We haven't done our full business model yet. We're just starting to plan this out. Obviously, the best case scenario would be free space.
sure.
And then getting waterfront commercial space is very expensive. We fully understand that. So what we hope to bring is this educational facility that's unique, that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And that would make it worthwhile for a city.
So my other question off that is, if the space was available tomorrow, what do you see as a timeline for activating that space and having the program? What kind of phasing would there be?
So right now, and again, we're in early stages, right? Because we have to develop.
So are we.
Yes, nonprofit. So we're looking at 3 years.
Okay.
I would say 3 years is kind of realistic based on what we're projecting now.
To be able to open the doors or
course.
open the doors? Would you be opening the doors with 10 staff and basically hit the ground completely running, wide open? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll ask a quick follow-up before going on. How big is your staff now? How big is the lab?
I have 15 staff now. So most of those are researchers, but I have a full-time science educator. We have 3 part-time educators, and then I have 60 volunteers.
So a pretty good group as things stand today. Sorry, thanks for your patience. Commissioner Light, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It's very exciting. I go out in the water a lot. I'm concerned about, I love great whites, but I'm also concerned about getting bit by one. So not that I think the young ones are going to bite me, but it's always, those are big fish. So if you had a place like we're talking about, Joe's Crab Shack, are you familiar with that?
A little bit. Yeah.
Since it's so close to the water, is there a waterside part of that program you'd envision putting intact, or is it all just shoreside?
Well, it'd be mainly shoreside, but the nice thing about having waterfront is that we have easy access to get out. We could put new technology out that we couldn't do anywhere else and be easily able to maintain it.
So you conduct some of your research from this center?
Absolutely. Santa
Okay.
Monica Bay and Redondo Canyon is a hotspot, right? So we could put new technology out that the public would get to see that you couldn't do anywhere else.
And how would we go about finding out what volunteer type opportunities there are and how we might apply for those?
Sure. So we take volunteers all the time. Roger's one. So you basically contact me. There's paperwork to do because we're a state institution. So you fill out the paperwork and put you to work.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Walters.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so you have an existing facility in Long Beach, at Long Beach?
At Long Beach
University-
State.
Long Beach State, okay. And that's principally a research facility?
Correct.
Okay. And this proposed location here in Redondo, what percent of your activities would be research versus others?
Oh,
Education.
it would be smaller. So the research part would probably be about 25% and the rest would all be education.
I see. So I know you've got K through 12 education here as one of your proposed uses. That's the other 75%, you think?
Well, in the public outreach part, so the exhibit hall. So basically that is, we want to bring tourists in. We want to have people that come to Southern California, that go to the beach, come to that facility to learn about, not just about sharks, that's the draw, but to get them to learn about how to be safe when they come to our beaches and to do it in a non-frightening way. So we're already doing this. We're doing it out of the wrong facility. We're doing it at Cal State Long Beach and you can't get the public there, really. So this is a public venue. So the K through 12 is our way of serving our local community. But the exhibit center that we want to have is for people that are visiting California from all over.
Right. So to Jim's point, Commissioner Light's point, so all of your activities would be on shore. Is there any activities that you would, take kids out to the water or take, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that, it comes down to sharks. For example, when sharks are in Santa Monica Bay, you drive 3 miles down the coast and we could show anybody white sharks. And once the sharks are there, we know that based on our research, they're going to be there for weeks to months. Having the ability to have that opportunity would be great, but we can't predict that just yet.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the presentation. It was really great. I take it part of the education is about reducing fear of sharks, right? I mean, after Jaws, we all did a lot of damage, psychological damage to people. Do you have any data on how, like, your educational facility does lower the angst, shall we say, about these beasts?
I'm glad you asked that question because the survey that we just did was examining that. So it turns out that there is a significant effect of our education and outreach. And what's kind of sad is that it all peaks in July, which is around Shark Week. So it turns out that Shark Week, Shark Fest, those things, and many of the education groups that focus on sharks also put out big messages at that time. And we do see a significant reduction in people's fear of sharks. So we think that those programs are working, even some of them that I'm not really a big fan of. And that's the first measurable metric that we have.
Okay, and that's good. And a follow-on question to that is, now that you have these buoys with the underwater sensors, would that potentially cause more beach closures and more fear in a way, right?
So that's a great question. And basically what we found was 6 years ago, when we first started doing this, lifeguards were pulling people out of the water after every detection. Now they go, that shark's been there. They may post signs, and that's following their protocols that they all use. So what we found is it's actually reduced beach closures.
Oh, okay.
Because they're using that information like we do as scientists, right? So they're now interpreting that data, and they're saying that shark's been detected there every single day, day after day. No surfers are reporting seeing the sharks. We know the shark is there. It's not bothering anybody. They'll post signs. Signs get stolen. And then people just forget about it. So far, the lifeguards have told us that that information has actually reduced their beach closures.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you so much.
Mr. Gazan, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the talk. Yeah, I was kind of curious about the psychological part. So the education and the outreach part, I guess it's really neat that you have a partnership with like psychologists, and I imagine you would leverage that in your outreach. Okay.
Yeah, so the question is, what's working, what isn't?
Yeah, because you don't want to like advertise, like in one way, you don't want to say, oh, Redondo Beach has sharks, don't come.
So we've had this challenge with Santa Monica in the past, where they didn't, we have something called Shark Shacks that we come out every summer, we go to public beaches and we educate the public about beach safety. And when we first started, Santa Monica asked us not to come. And now they do. Of course, we've been doing it for many years, and now it's become quite popular. But at first they were reticent. I can understand why.
Right.
But now people are starting to see that it has benefit for locals and for visitors.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Did I miss anybody? Any other questions?
I have a question. So we talked about timelines, and you talked about 3 years. What would be your timeline for having a commitment from a place to host?
I would say we're a year out, because we have to develop a business model. Nobody would touch us until we get all those pieces together anyway. But since you're thinking about this now, and we're thinking about this now, I thought this might be a good time to come at least present the ideas that we have. And then the goal would be, in a year, have something moving forward.
So some 12 months from now, you're in a position to make a commitment to a location. What happens if you don't find one? Does that just kind of everything fall apart, or you wait around until somebody steps forward, or?
So we've been presenting at other beach cities, and some of the public aquaria are interested.
Somebody else might get you first.
That's the goal.
Okay, fair enough.
Commissioner Walters.
Yeah, on the issue of finances, so do you operate on annual grants from the state, or how do you operate currently?
It was a 5-year appropriation. So we have 5 years, that ends next fall, and then we're going to try to get another 5 years.
Okay, so you got a 5-year appropriation, you're about a year out from committing, and 2 additional years to open your doors. So do you have a self-sustaining business model, or what's your plan with that?
We haven't developed that yet. That's what we're working on now. So because this will have to be separate from the university, so that has to become a nonprofit basically that we'll need to form with a board and then come up with a business model for what it will take to equip, depending on whether we have fixed costs or not. And then we would go from there. But some of the technology that we have, we've developed the software, so we don't have to pay for that. So that's something that we bring. It's just put in big screen TVs and the rest is there.
And then merchandising and entry fees or whatever will make up the difference, hopefully. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a comment on that. We've seen this be kind of chicken and egg. We saw this with C-Lab where we had, a great local waterfront facility going, and they had ongoing funding, but once they lost their lease, they couldn't get any more funding. It was very chicken and egg with keeping them going and keeping that lease going. And I think, Julie Cole, who's up next, can tell the same story about, you need an address before you can get checks sent to you. So, thanks. I'm sorry. Commissioner Light, did you have another question?
I just wanted to, thank you for coming out. I don't have any more questions, but I did want to hear if there's other public comments. And then I do have some discussion I'd like to do with the rest of the commission on if there's any actions out of this.
Sure, okay. Do we typically go for public comment at this point? I think that's the only presenter we have on this agenda item. Okay, so I think we could open it up for public comment. Do we have anyone present in the chamber that would like to comment? Seeing none? Okay. Come on down so they can hear you out in the rest of the world as well. Thanks.
I'm fascinated to hear your presentation. Thank you. And I just made a connection.
What's your name?
Charles Woods.
Charles Wood?
Yeah. I'm originally from England and my family is from England. And my brother just contacted me saying that he was watching some documentary about sharks in Santa Barbara and activity and the increased sharks. So talking about if it were done, worldwide, internationally, people would be interested in coming to a center, with educating them on sharks. So just adding that element to it. It's amazing. He just contacted me about it. Someone standing up.
Yeah, thanks. It's why I got involved as well. I mean, I was kind of hoping to get involved in some, big key, large endangered species. And I was sitting around one day wishing we had lions or tigers or something here. And then I'm like, you idiot. We have something a lot like that here. So thanks a lot.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for the presenter. I'm sorry, this one real quick one. Are there any other similar Pacific Shark Centers in California or across the country?
No. So there are research centers. And by the way, the Shark Lab at Cal State Long Beach is one of the oldest shark research centers in the country. But there are no shark education or tourism focused centers. So the aquaria, like Monterey and Long Beach,
Pacific,
they have sharks, but they don't just do sharks.
Okay, but there are folks doing research all across the country, I assume, on sharks. They just don't have a public center like this, correct?
Yeah.
So would this be a first of its kind, is what you're saying?
No, there's one, this will be kind of modeled after the one on Cape Cod. And the reason why the one on Cape Cod got made was because of concerns from the public about safety. And also the researchers were trying to do research and get that information out to the public. So it won't be the first of its kind. This will be modeled after that. And the reason why I find the model so good is because it's been actually very effective. They've only been there 4 years and they've done a really good job, I think, in getting the public and tourists going back to Cape Cod, even though they're hearing about white sharks on the Cape all summer long.
But this is your group?
This is my group.
It is. Okay, you said 4 years has been operating?
Yeah.
I see.
Well, that's Cape Cod.
Cape Cod,
That's a
right,
separate
correct.
group. Right, but
Okay.
I do communicate with them. We share ideas all the time, and they're already offered to help. with a lot of the things that we would need to do to get off the ground.
Okay, and this site will be modeled after that site, correct? Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other public comment from here in the room? Okay, any public comment from out in Zoom?
For Zoom attendees, please raise your hand if you would like to speak on item L1. Okay, thank you. We can proceed.
Thanks, okay. Any e-comments?
There are no e-comments for item L1 at this time.
Okay, thanks. Any final discussion from the commission at this point? Commissioner Light, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is on here for receive and file, but I did want to discuss amongst the commission whether there's some other action we may want to take, like should the members who are on the subcommittee kind of carry this forward for the amenities plan, or is that too detailed for the amenities plan? Or, I'm just, I hate to just get stuff and then let it, not do anything with it.
Yeah, I think the obvious potential action is the same thing we did last month to, not necessarily hand it off to just the amenities plan and the sub-working group, but also hand it off to, put our stamp of interest on it if appropriate, and then hand it off to the city manager for, further discussion on, what the business model might look like and further work there.
So we should probably wait to hear the second education item tonight, and then we can probably bundle it.
Potentially. We made a motion last month without waiting for these two, for example. So I leave it to you and the commission to, see if a motion is appropriate at this point.
Yeah, I think, this obviously has a draw. I'm sure some of you remember the end of the pier used to have a frozen shark in there. And I know when I first got here, when I was an Air Force officer and wasn't even stationed here yet, came here TDY, we were out on the pier and it said, see the great white. And I paid my money and went in and saw the frozen shark in there. So it definitely has a tourist appeal. And I think this would be much better than going in and looking at that frozen great white that didn't have a whole lot of educational value to it. So, I'm actually excited about the opportunity to see it go somewhere else.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Any other discussion at this point? Okay.
So then motion to at least receive and file.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Lowe. We may have discussion on this after the next item. You're welcome to stay with us. Catch it on YouTube later or whatever you'd like to do. Thanks for coming. Okay, next agenda item. Let me see if I can find that on the PC here. So our next agenda item L2, is to discuss and provide input regarding potential programming of a future educational facility at the waterfront. Pretty similar topic.
Thank you. Almost the exact same topic, but this is phase 2. We've invited Julie Cole to present an oral report to the commission tonight. Similar ideas. We've got the public amenities plan. There's a portion of that plan that speaks to an educational facility. We're very broad range at this point. We just know that the amenities plan indicates that an educational facility will be a portion of it. So again, this is round 2 tonight, round 3 of our overall ideas of what that waterfront educational facility could look like. Julie co-founded the King Harbor Boating Foundation in 2012, along with Mark Hansen. And the goal of that foundation is to educate the community about the ocean environment by having the community actively engage with nature out on the water. I invite Julie to come join us right now. She's going to start with a small video and then a PowerPoint presentation.
Can you guys hear me okay? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Want me to start it?
How do I use this?
Hang tight. I got this part.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, you wanted volume.
Rewind.
Basically, what we're showcasing here is we did an Earth Day event, and we had water and beach cleanups over the weekend, and Marcy Klein was a sponsor and put together this great video.
I'm not sure why the sound's not working.
No sound.
Shows that the sound is on, not muted. Yeah. Okay.
No.
There. IT's working on it.
All right.
Stand by for technical difficulties.
I know, right? If we can't hear this sound, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Again, thanks everyone for your patience. The council meeting room got upgraded over the last couple of years, and it was
It's new
it
to
was
us all.
yeah, it's new to us all. It was planned to be done anyway.
Yeah.
We would have had to meet in the library, but we were able to meet here.
Much more vibrant.
Well, it's just exciting to be here in person.
Yeah. Has the library conference room already been updated, or is that in work now? It has been? Great. Great. All right, so that's some silver lining coming out of the last couple of years.
Please. Bring in a specialist.
That's true.
Is it this computer? Yeah.
It's okay, guys. Yeah, we can just play, let's just play the video. Yeah, she's got words and stuff in there. You'll get the gist of it.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So this is open to all members of the families and the public. We do these cleanups once a month and they're free. It's called our Ocean Warriors program. And we also make our kayaks available for groups to go out, and we do that on Sundays. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in my presentation. You'll notice the ocean in the video here is looking very ugly because of the red tide. So. There you go. Let's make every day Earth Day. Okay. And now the cool music. Marcy did a great job. And then if we just go to the PowerPoint, here we go. Okay, so I'm here to talk about waterfront education. We have been educating out in the harbor for close to a decade now. We have had sort of a hand-to-mouth existence as we've bounced around a bit, but we have been on the current property, which was the old Sea Lab, for about 7 years, so even before they closed. Oops, how to make it go?
Button on the right,
Right,
downward.
there we go. All right, who am I? I'm an active sailboat racer and boat owner. I'm a King Harbor Yacht Club member. I'm a member of the Women's Sailing Association. I was in the leadership class of 2015. I organized Seafair for 9 years. I don't know if you guys remember that event, but I would love to see us bring that back. It just got to be too big for Maria, and the old director of Sea Lab, and I to organize. I'm a Redondo Beach resident, and I love the ocean. I'm a conservationist. So I'm here in the harbor a lot. I spend my money here in the harbor. I'm out on the water very frequently, not every day, but in between the slides, I'm going to show you what teaching in Redondo Beach looks like. So these are pictures over the years We do innovation, sailing. We're going to get to that in a second. We were founded in 2012 as King Harbor Boating Foundation. When we founded the organization, it's because we had two events, the Holiday Boat Parade and the Sea Fair, that were getting pushback from corporations and did not want to donate funds to a yacht club. So Mark and I sat down and, we said, yes, we can form a nonprofit. And I was very adamant, as Mark will tell you, that I said, if we're going to do this, I don't want to just push money through for a couple of events. I want to educate, about water, about marine science. So we're a California Public Benefit Corporation. We are a 501c3 and have been from the very beginning. Currently, Waterfront Education is a DBA that was created because there's another organization, King Harbor Youth Foundation. And so King Harbor Boating Foundation, Youth Foundation, there was some trouble identifying. So we are Waterfront Education as a DBA and are in the process of making it across the board. So some more pictures of our kids. Our vision, a healthy ocean that's valued, protected, and preserved by all. And that means all classes of people, all ethnicities, all socioeconomic. And that's really what our mission talks to create these experiential learning situations. When kids learn out in nature, it's amazing because they're actually looking and seeing at things as they're participating in the water. And when we talk about students, we tend to think about children, but really students are all ages. And the sense of inclusiveness and stewardship of our oceans is really critical. When these kids are out there, they live in the ocean and they're out learning the ocean and they want to take care of it. I don't know if you guys know, but we had moon jellies last year. Our harbor has quite a bit of sea life, and it's always amazing for us to see. The one that I'm really excited about that I didn't get a picture of is we actually had a sea turtle about a month ago. It was amazing. It was lost, obviously, but it was kind of cool to see. But I wasn't able to get a picture because I was shoving off the dock with the kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, look, there's a sea turtle. So anyway, I was busy doing other things. Our funding, and this was important, whoever was talking about the funding. We're funded in several ways. We are paid for our teaching services. We do get corporate donations, personal donations, and grants, but being paid for our teaching services allows us to have a working business model that's not reliant on fickle donors or a grant direction being changed, that sort of thing. So that's right, the reason why it's bold, and I'm going to get to how that works in a little bit, but it has allowed us to maintain stability for our employees, not have to let them go, like when COVID hit and many nonprofits had to let people go because suddenly funding dried up. Ours continued to maintain, and we grew quite a bit. Okay, some more of our kiddos. Okay, this slide we want to talk about, we put in a new system July 1st, and so we've got roughly about 1,400 students that we have worked with this year. I'm confident it's going to be over 1,500. Before COVID, we were seeing about a 20 to 25% growth. With COVID, that jumped to like 30 to 40% growth year over year. The majority of the people we work with are homeschool families. You're going to hear from some of them tonight. And we also work with charter and private school groups. We'll do programs for them, scouting and outdoor organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, that sort of thing. We do work with businesses and corporations, and that's mostly through the Ocean Warriors program, where they'll come out with their staff, and we go out and clean the ocean, and they learn about pollution in the ocean and the things that we can do. And then we work with adults and community families with some of our public offerings. Our programs, these are some of them, but I wanted to let you guys see kind of the flavor and breadth of things that we're doing here. Adventure Girls, Aqua Architects. We are not an aquarium, but we teach students how to build them. There's a lot of important lessons, particularly between building habitats for freshwater and saltwater. Blue Discovery, Blue Horizons, same sort of thing of being outside and learning in nature. Coastal Survivor is a popular class. It was created by one of our instructors, where the students actually go up and they're doing coastal hikes up in PV, and they're learning survival skills, knife skills, shelter building, that sort of foraging, that sort of thing. Full Steam Ahead in Sea Sports. For those who are not familiar in the education business, STEAM and STEM stand for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math, or Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. So you'll hear those terms in educational circles or talking about education in general. High school marine science is a new class for us. Marine innovation, which is underwater robotics, which is another popular class. That one did take a hit during COVID because it is inside when we're not testing. And it's important to understand underwater robotics is very, very different than on-land robotics because you have this whole water element. So it's a whole different ballgame. Ocean exploration and STEM sailing, of course, my favorite because I'm a sailor. Boat parade. So we're going to talk about some of the events that we do. We've participated in the boat parade now for 8 years, and I'm happy to say we've won it every year so far. And the reason is the kids put a lot of heart into it. They come up with the idea, they work on it, and they spend, about 4 weeks putting it together. So it's a fun event. Other things we do, Ocean Warriors, I mentioned. We do ocean fishing and learning excursions. We have done shark excursions, by the way. Talking about a boat full of sick kids, but hey, we did see a shark, so that was awesome. Full moon kayaking is very popular, and that starts this month and will run through September. If you haven't seen the harbor at night, I encourage you to come out. It's very different than during the day. We do take groups over to Catalina Island. We run holiday and summer camps, and we do private groups and family events. Family events, birthday parties. We have, believe it or not, on the books, a wedding cleanup next February, which is awesome. And the holiday boat parade, as I mentioned. This is one of the schools that we do programs with. So here's some of the schools that we work with. I'm sure you all are familiar with LAUSD, so we do some remote things with them. The other schools you may not be so familiar with, they are charter schools. Through the state of California, just like your neighborhood schools, but they cater to homeschool families. Okay, Pirate Day, gotta have Pirate Day in the summer, right? Okay, so I wanna spend some time talking about this because you may not be familiar with it. So the charter schools that we work for are funded by the state of California, just like the neighborhood schools. So all the schools get the same amount per kid. How they allocate their funds is very different. Because these schools are not landed schools, they don't have the same expenses. Now, the kids are required, just like in a neighborhood school, they have to meet all the state guidelines as they progress. They're assigned an education facilitator. That part we're not as involved in. We're the enrichment part. So these families are given roughly about $2,500 a year per child to spend on enrichment. And enrichment for every family is different. If their kid is into the ocean, they find their way to our program. If their child is into online robotics or dancing, they're not going to come to our program. But essentially, the parents and the families, they get to make those choices. So we're considered an enrichment vendor. And what that means is we go through a process. We have an annual contract. We have insurance certificates that we do for the schools. And all of our instructors are live scanned. If you're not familiar with that, that's basically background checks. So the family makes their choice as far as enrichment. The school issues a purchase order. We then get the purchase order, and we know that Susie's going to be taking STEM and sailing. We teach the classes, and then we build the schools. So we've got pretty much like a 60-day cycle from when we see our money from the time the kid steps in the classroom. These are some students from a Solar Cup program that we did. And actually, Racine in there, he actually came to work for us after that program. Why homeschool families are so important to Redondo. They travel to our city. I can't emphasize this enough. They come from Lancaster. They come from the desert. They come from the San Fernando and San Gabriel Valley. But they come here to participate in our programs, and they stay here. When the kids are in class, they're spending money in our city. So it's really, really important now because they do contribute to the local economy. And we're kind of off the beaten path. So if we were in another location closer to more restaurants and things like that, then we'd see more of an impact. I haven't tracked it. I know what my parents tell me. I know where I send them. I'm like, hey, I need to grab lunch. Hermosa Pier is close to us. And I tell them our pier as well. They make their own decisions. Another important thing with our programs and with working with these homeschool families is that we're busy September to May, Monday through Friday, when most other harbor businesses are not busy. So this is good revenue, not only for us, but for the city as a whole. Not to say that we don't do things on weekends and we don't do summer camps, But this is a book of business and opportunity for us to really dig into. Homeschooling is doing nothing but growing. And it's because families like the ability to choose and not have to wait for their child to be in high school to be in a marine science program. If their kid's into the ocean, they want them there at 5, 6, 7. The other thing, and came to light more recently, is that they're coming back to the city for family celebrations. I think someone might talk about that. But they're coming here for graduations, for birthdays, that sort of thing. And not necessarily to our programs, to other programs. So we are definitely driving to other programs besides just our own. More kiddos. Okay, this is a very sad statistic. The average kid only gets out 4 to 7 minutes a day, and they spend 5 to 8 hours in front of a digital screen. So this just shows that outdoor education is going to continue to grow. Okay, more students. The impact of outdoor education. Some of this is common sense. It builds confidence and self-reliance. Absolutely. We see that every day. Promotes critical thinking, creativity, and imagination. Definitely teaches responsibility. And it teaches responsibility in a way you may not think. When we see sea creatures and we need to tell them, like, hey, yeah, let's take a look at this. They need to be gentle. I mean, there's that connection between, I need to take care of this. You know, it's not just I'm looking at something behind glass. You're in the ocean, you know, out in a tide pool, looking at what's happening. You're feeling the sand dollar, you know, move across your hand. You know, so that whole discussion happens about how we need to be respectful, not only of each other, but to the sea creatures and to the equipment. We teach the kids, it's one of our rules. Provides unique stimulation and sensory opportunities. It's the whole see, smell, touch, that sort of thing that you don't get when you're sitting behind a desk. And this is a huge one. It creates an understanding of situational awareness. I mean, this is a tough one to teach unless you're out and you're doing things. And, you know, you're out in the ocean and you're saying, okay, let's look around. Who else is out here? What are we seeing? What are we observing? Oh, that bank of clouds. Okay, oh my goodness, that's some fog. We need to figure out what we're going to do. You know, that did happen. Rolled in, and we had to have a big discussion on what we do when fog rolls in. I put this in here because the adults are having fun too. They basically said, "Hey, start programming and doing some stuff for us." So there's a shot of the full moon kayaking, and we did a Friday fishing happy hour. Okay, why we should embrace outdoor education in Redondo Beach. First of all, we all know this. We have amazing ocean access compared to other harbors. It's not 45 minutes to get out to the ocean like in Marina del Rey. It's not the behemoth that is Long Beach. We're small and we're a manageable harbor for people who are afraid of the ocean. It's not overwhelming for them, particularly for the kids when they get started. We have a plethora of marine life. So many things that are happening in our harbor. And once you have a guided scientist to show you where it's at, even people like me can find it. One of the things that we had last year that was pretty exciting is we had right by the yacht club, we had the sea hares and the Namanaks lay their eggs. So the kids, every time they went down to the docks, were looking to see when things were gonna, start to happen. We see sea hares, we see the bat rays, the round rays, mating, all sorts of stuff. Lots of migratory birds. We know this, we all live here. Unique ocean canyon, which was created during the last ice age, which has a lot of cool things that go with it. We have a microclimate when it comes to weather. As sailors, we're always checking the weather. We have active wave environment. So some people would say, oh my gosh, that's a minus, but actually it's a because you're teaching the kids to interact with that, and there's a whole discussion about how waves form, wave action, and wave energy, which leads to the discussion about tsunamis. I will tell you the two biggest fears: getting bit by a shark and the big wave that's going to take us all out. I mean, those are the two things that the kids have freaked out about. And the other thing is, right now there is a lot of funding available for building STEM facilities for outdoor education. So anything that we would do, we can definitely tap into that, especially as a mature organization that's been around for a lot of years. Okay, Catalina. What do we want? Why am I here? Why do I do this? We definitely want a long-term commitment from the city of Redondo Beach for outdoor marine education. The reason for that is to get the bigger funders, you need a commitment on the land for so many years. Otherwise, the numbers just don't work. And especially since I think all of us are on the same page, is we want a brand new shiny building, having been in an old building for many years. Let's take a look at the whole picture. It doesn't mean we couldn't do it in phases, but as far as the Joe's Crab Shack property, we're prepared to go in there tomorrow. I mean, we're ready we just move things. And I think it's actually a smart maneuver to do that before you start planning, because I have taught all over this harbor, and I will tell you that there are nuances to each part of it. And so it's sort of like, let's prototype and see what actually is involved in teaching out of that part of the harbor and, taking things to the public launch, that sort of thing. We need a permanent facility with water access for sure. Right now, we are very thankful that King Harbor Marina has given us the old Tarzan access. And King Harbor Yacht Club has been very good about letting us run our sailing program off their docks. But as we grow, we're going to outgrow, hopefully not their patience, but certainly we're going to outgrow their facilities as far as us being able to grow our programs with more sailboats and more access. Embrace and support programs for those who don't live by the ocean. This is huge. It's a hot topic. We have done it. We want to do more of it. It takes some coordination because the biggest hurdle is transportation. So I've been talking to people about different ways that we can do that. And the long-term vision that I would like to see is creation of a hands-on exploratorium that teaches about the science of the sea, the waves, the weather, the chemistry, the wind, not an aquarium. We have lots of aquariums around us. And certainly in doing something like that, it opens the door for working with lots of other organizations. We collaborate all the time. And I think through collaboration, sometimes you get some pretty special things that happen. Okay. Thank you for letting us share this evening. I'm going to take any questions, but I wanted to leave us with this. That in life, it's all about perspective. So anyway, this is one of our students.
I'm trying to make my microphone work. Hang on a second.
It's on.
There we go. Okay. Thanks a lot. So one question about your program. What do you see the facility looking like? Do you see it looking like, a classroom for the groups you're bringing down? Do you see it looking like, a public-facing outreach center? What's the vision there?
Actually, I see it as both. And we actually had the prototype for that when the Sea Lab was around. So the Sea Lab portion ran as a facility open to the public. And then we ran in a back bungalow, and we still run. And so we're usually outside, but we do some classroom stuff. So I think a combination would be ideal because you definitely want families who only can come down here on the weekend to be able to access and have educational stuff. So we have some pretty good ideas of things that would work because we're already teaching that hands-on portion. So it's just a matter of getting funding to, expand it. For example, with the remote operated vehicles, the oil and gas industry, they use those all the time and they sponsor and fund things like that. So if we had an area where the kids could take the PVC pipe, start to put things together, start to work with buoyancy, with the buoyancy that we provide, throw it into a pool. I mean, that is some cool hands-on learning that is very simple and any age can do it. There are other examples, but that's a classic one. So I would definitely like to see it both components to it, so.
Thanks. How do you feel about being in potentially a shared facility?
Whatever it takes. We're used to doing collaborations. So, we have a broad net. That's why we've been able to work with a lot of people. Waterfront education encompasses a lot. So over the years, we've done different things. We've done Solar Cup and we collaborated with that program. So, we're definitely open to it. Grant awardees like to see collaborations. They like to see that sort of dynamic going on when you're applying for those. So I would, I welcome it. So I don't run from it. It's like the more the merrier, we're all kind of in this thing together. And so.
What would be the ideal facility for you in, square footage or layout roughly?
Well, it depends on how big I want to think and how big that check I can write, right? So the Joe's Crab Shack property could definitely work. I've looked at the Gold's Gym, they've got 27,000 square feet. So I think we can make it what we want it to. Ideally, besides just having the programs that we do, which are 12 to 15 participants at a time, if we have a large enough facility like Maria had over at C-Lab, then you can get the busloads of schools to come down. I'm not sure when they're going to be back to having, 60, I don't know if you don't know, buses are 60 kids per bus. And so schools like to send a bus at a time. So if we build the facility right, then we get that additional business too, so it's a matter of sitting down and planning and saying, okay, here's what we want to do Monday through Friday. And then the weekend stuff is just carryover, right? So we're already running 7 days a week right now. It's just a matter of maintaining, steady hours and things like that for, I don't know if you want to call the public or for the general public stuff. But I think very much when those families come down, I want them walking from the pier across the parking lot and around, or however we configure all that, and doing some hands-on stuff with us. And I want the reverse to be true, is when our students come down here, I want them walking around and going to those restaurants. Because it's, when fishing is another great example, is when you have kids out there and they catch a fish, they love the ocean. But we teach them when you're catching and you're taking something from the ocean, then you need to eat that or to use that, or you throw it back. So when they go down, they go to Quality Seafood or some of the other restaurants, there's this whole, I don't want to say farm to table, but ocean to table concept and the discussion that happens because, okay, we're catching a fish, we're not going to the store and buying it, and so it leads to some very interesting discussions.
Thanks. Okay. I've got a lot of public speaker cards, but we'll go to the commission up here first. Any questions for the commission? Go ahead, Commissioner Light.
Thanks, Julie. I've known what you guys do for years, but I didn't realize the scope of it. So the statistics on the number of students was pretty amazing to me. That's impressive. I do think, as we start to move forward, we do need to nail down what kind of space requirements you'll need, because, trying to see if we can leverage multiple things into one facility, you have to understand what's the permanent space, what's the shared space. But beyond that, where do you envision, if we were just Crab Shack, would you store the kayaks, and then where would you put in the water?
We're still going to have the public launch ramp there, correct? Yeah, so we would definitely do dry storage there. What that looks like next week, it would look like probably a container in the parking lot. In the future, I'd want to build something that had storage underneath and have classrooms and stuff above. So those are kind of getting into the weeds sort of design things. And I'd also want to take a look at some of the hands-on things that are out there already in other cities. So I'm not sure if I'm really answering the question, but.
No, that answers the question.
Okay, I think there's like a short term.
Because right now you have a dock you're launching from.
Correct.
Just Crab Shack, unless you go into Portofino, there's not a dock right near there.
Correct,
So you'd look at using the hand launch
Yes,
facility.
and we have used the hand launch. When the sport fishing pier was still up and running, Maria and I did several programs where when you have large groups, you create learning stations. So we launched from the hand launch. We had a station at the base of the pier, and I forget, but we had 3 or 4 stations. So the hand launch is sufficient. It's a short walk to launch from there, so that's not a problem.
Yeah, okay.
What we do in the future, we'll figure that out. It's going to take us, a while to figure out all the different components. But my point is, we don't have to wait. We're already operational right now, and we could, and that is to my point of like, let's get down there and see what that looks like, right? What does that look like getting, 15 kayaks down the ramp and everyone loaded on them, that type of thing.
If the hand launch develops into a 0 depth, could you also do your testing of ROVs right in that area? Or could you use Seaside Lagoon?
Seaside Lagoon for sure. I like the idea of having something down there. One of the things that I would love to offer that I have not been able to is swimming lessons, because it's such a core skill for everything that we do. In addition, doing things with getting kids for the first time on kayaks and stand-up paddleboards and teaching safety in an enclosed environment would be great. ROVs, awesome to be able to toss them in and take a look. The ROV competitions do take place in pools, and those tend not to be saltwater pools. So when we actually built ours, And we looked at it, it was built in a freshwater environment, and we tossed it into the ocean, and it obviously operated completely differently. So those are all things that I think are good.
Okay, thanks. And Chris, having heard this, is there potential to work together on some collaboration between what you guys do and what she, her?
The kids would love it. The kids love the sharks. They're afraid of them, but they love them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Commissioner,
Julie.
Commissioner Walters.
Thank you. You said you were ready to move in. I'm just curious, would you have to raise money to make the improvements to the building? It's quite a big building, from what I understand. It's close to 10,000 square feet, which is pretty substantial. Would you have to go raise money for that, or do you already have existing funding?
We have existing funding, but I think you have to understand where I'm at right now is in a very old building that's a construction zone. So to me, Judge Crabshack doesn't need a lot of modification for us to get in there. The tables are not, attached to the floor. Things can be moved. Then the next phase would be to actually go out and get more funding for a new building or whatever we decide that we want to do. But right now, I think we're operating the whole big building plus the patio. It's, I don't know, probably 17,000 square feet, something like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that the property gets immediate use out of. So I was just very curious by that statement. So you're able to go in and move and use it as is currently?
Yeah.
And for what types of uses?
Well, the bar area, we totally take out all the bar stuff and put in the tanks where the kids do the aqua architects because all the plumbing's right there. The bathrooms are there, which is nice. Currently, we have to use the King Harbor Marina bathrooms. The space itself for teaching, well, we'd store, just like we do now, our life jackets. That's a big room right there. And then the only challenge would be the storing the kayaks and the stand-up paddle boards. I wouldn't want to store them inside. I want to try to find a way to store them outside.
So in your current setting, how do you teach your classes? Do you have just like a big open room where the kids go into, or do you have separate classrooms?
We have one big open room, which is an echo chamber. And then we have a back lab that was used by Edison, which is a bungalow. But most of our teaching occurs outside. So we're more of like a pass-through station where they're dropping off stuff, they're picking up their life jackets, they're getting whatever materials if they're gonna learn on the beach that day, or if they're going out kayaking. Then we walk for the kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding. We walk across the parking lot to right by the Bay Club, and we launch right there. And then we take the kids, down the channel to the breakwall. Sailing, we walk them down to the yacht club. And for the beach, we walk them right there to the beach.
Okay, so the Crab Shack parking lot would be useful as well. It's pretty large.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, how many kids do you teach on, I say, a daily or weekly basis? I think you said that you're pretty busy from pretty much September to May, which is the school year, right?
Yeah, it depends on the day. So our magic number is 12. So 12 to 15 per class, and we run up to 3 classes at a time currently. Mostly we're restricted with space, but it's very common to have a STEM sailing class going on, a coastal survivor class, and then 2 things going on, one in the big room. And our big room goes to a patio, which was where the old desalination experiment or whatever it was. So that's been very helpful. And then, like I said, we could have something in a small bungalow.
So you might have as many as what, 30, 40, 50 kids or something in a day?
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that every day?
Probably 4 out of 5 days. Yeah.
4 out of 5?
Yeah, Wednesdays are a super busy day. It kind of depends. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are super busy. Mondays and Fridays, families tend to take off, and we don't offer as many classes because, families go away on the weekends and stuff like that. So
what happens during the summer months?
during the summer months, we do camps. So we're finishing up mid-June is our last kind of regular scheduled. And then we start our summer camps right after the 4th of July, and we'll run 7 weeks of summer camps. This year, we're doing 7 weeks, 9:30 to 3. And then in addition, we'll do what we've done in the past, which are specialty camps. So we'll have Coastal Survivor Camp. We're doing a bilingual Blue Discovery Camp. We'll do our STEM sailing camp. And those are more like 2.5 hours to 3 hours in duration versus all day. Then the schools, I don't know if you guys know this, but the school years end June 30th for the state of California. So everything ends then, and then you start July 1st. So some of the schools make funds available for the parents starting July 1st. Some make them wait until their official school year starts. But we start back up after Labor Day. We start our regular classes. So we start usually like the second week in September. And it's a sprint to boat parade. Then we get about a month off. And then we start the end of January. And then it's another sprint until June. And so what we see in November, December, January, February is the on the water stuff. Not so much interest. It still goes because, diehards want to get out there and they want to sail and they want to be on the water. We have a lot of weather that we have to contend with, especially in the spring here. So we offer land lessons when we can't go out and do, for example, sailing. And we'll come back and we'll teach the kids how to cut rope, how to, do different things that are related to whatever their class is. So
I see. And how many paid staff do you have versus volunteers?
we are all paid staff. Part-time, well, our program director is just about to go full-time. I don't have the exact number. I think we're at about 8. And then volunteers, we have a few here and there. So the bulk of our employees are employees. They're paid staff versus volunteers. We welcome volunteers. We love volunteers. But volunteers tend to have other lives. And so I need people who can be committed for the students there so that we can honor our commitments to our schools and our parents. So love volunteers, like to get them out on the water. And actually with volunteers, if you guys are ever looking for something fun to do, with our littlest students, our 5 through 7, with COVID, I made a mandate that we get all the kids out on the water. Previous to that, we just had them on the beach. The only way we can do that is we have a one-to-one relationship between a volunteer and a kid, because a 5 to 7-year-old child cannot operate a kayak by themselves. And it is great to see their smiles when they're out there. So volunteers are very important. And yeah, we embrace them.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Any other
Good
Commissioner Grzan, go ahead.
Thanks so much. I'm familiar with your program, but as someone with kids in RBUSD not able to participate, is part of your vision to get the local schools either through the programming with the schools or to offer classes after school so that kids who are not homeschooling can participate? Is that part of a future vision?
It's actually part of a vision that we had. So after school, yes, and we have run after school programs. Totally open to working with the local schools. We get hired by schools in other areas. They bring their kids down here. Would love to do that. Would love to see, a rotation, for science going down to the harbor and actually doing field work. Because when you see a kid go out and they find something and they look at it under a microscope, you can't get that sort of, nature to classroom, gateway situation. And the other thing that we're starting to do too is take a look at how can the teachers in the classroom teach maybe the classroom part, and then we be the extension that's out in nature. So I'm working with a group back east that's very similar to us. It's called NESS, which is New England Science and Sailing. And they have a program that they're, I don't want to say certifying the teachers, but they're providing lesson plans and things for classroom teachers. And then the second part of that, they're doing on the water. Now, obviously, they have a little bit different things that they have to contend with because they have snow and we don't. So they're really jealous that we get to operate as, like we do outdoors. So I'm in discussions with that founder to say, hey, you guys have already done the hard part in putting this curriculum together. How do we take that and, put it into the schools here? And one of our schools that we worked with, LA City Kids, we worked with them now for 4 years. We do 8 weeks in the fall and 8 weeks in the spring, and that's going to be the first school that I think we're going to test it with. And then we can open it up to whoever. It's right here. I think the kids who are here, should have the chance to go out in the water. Most of them do anyway, but as a part of the curriculum, right on, let's bring it. So, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Bauer.
Yes, I had a follow-on as well. Yeah, it struck me as odd that, so if your child goes to a charter school, you get $2,500 per student, but you don't as if you're just a part of the regular public school, right? That's an interesting thing. I guess that was just the way that they cooked, how they came up with the.
I don't know the ins and outs of all the contracts, but my understanding is that the state pays every school the same per child. The difference is how the funds are allocated. So where a neighborhood school might say, okay, this is what we're offering, and the parents just go along with what they're offering. In a charter school, it's about choice. So, they get the funds, and then the parents make the decision for what's best for their child.
I see.
So it's a subtle difference, but it's big because I think we're going to see more of it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Second part of that, when you do your budgeting, do you budget some for facilities enhancement kind of stuff? Do you know what I'm saying? So.
Yes. Have we in the past? No. Do we need to as we move forward? Absolutely.
Okay.
So our funds, how we're funded, the grants, the donations, those are the things that do enhancements. So when we did our stand-up paddle boards, we actually fundraised for a year and then we went out and we bought them. So I'm currently in a situation where I don't pay any rent, I don't pay any utilities. Anywhere I go, that's going to change. But we do have a robust budget to include that. We have a nice bank account, and we have not done a very good job of going out and getting big grants and doing big fundraising efforts, just simply because it's been a personnel issue. It's like I'm one person, and now as I'm handing things off and we're building more staff, I can build a fundraising team or a grant writing team to get those bigger numbers. So.
Right. Well, thank you so much for all you're doing. It's an excellent program.
All right, thanks. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Okay, anything else from the commission? Okay, let's go to.
Thank you.
For the first time in years, let's go to public comment from inside the room here. I've got some green cards, and the first person I have is Alaya Kim. Alaya, come on down and give us your comments on waterfront education. Thanks for being here.
My name is Elijah. I'm a resident of Redondo Beach. I'm here to defend waterfront education and request that the harbor remain available to them. Waterfront benefits the education of all students, encourages different water sports and activities. It's fun for participants, students, and volunteers while creating relationships along the way. Waterfront activities taught me to self-discipline when I was paddling exhaustion. I would never have any of this experience if it wasn't for waterfront. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Okay, next person I have is Patricia Gomez. Come on down. I'm sorry, I'm reading a note now. She doesn't want to speak, but is here to support waterfront education. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks very much for being one of the people in this room for the first time in years. Next person I have is Amy Cooper.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for all you're doing behind the scenes to make our waterfront safe and accessible for all of us. My name is Amy Cooper. I'm a Redondo Beach resident, and I'm the parent to Isla and West, who have been attending waterfront programs for about 5 years. All of us, especially kids, learn through using their senses. And when we touch something and we see it with our own eyes, we develop a connection. We truly care about that which we experience. The genius of Julie's programs is the kids are immersed in the experience of the ocean. They come home sandy and wet and excited about the new species of animals that they saw, or the experiment they did, and even the trash that they're collecting. The local families gain knowledge and make community connections through waterfront. The kids coming in from the valleys and surrounding areas are having new experiences and making lifelong memories. The families bring in revenue and tourism to our local businesses. And the inner city kids are perhaps connecting to the ocean for the first time. They'll share their knowledge with their communities. The young adults waterfront education employ go on to become teachers, fishermen, boat captains. My daughter Isla sails with Julie and has gained such confidence in her knowledge of weather, rigging, wind direction. Her hobby is tying knots. My son Wes loves to show off by naming the types of fish he sees in the harbor. Rather than gleaning knowledge through a book or a screen, waterfront education provides unbounded connections to the earth. Even if most of the students don't become marine biologists, they will come away with a respect and personal connection to their environment that they may not afford if not for accessible in-person programs such as Waterfront. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Okay, the next card I have is Charles Wood. He is here in support of waterfront education and isn't here to speak.
I actually gave an E comment, so I can read those aloud.
Okay. Thanks. We'll read the, we'll go to Zoom. I've got a couple more cards. We'll go to Zoom and then we'll read the e-comments. Thank you. Next card I have is Brian, I apologize if I say the last name wrong, Shale?
Close enough.
I'll say it a couple different ways and, bracket it. Shield, thank you.
Thank you. They all said a lot of great things. Waterfront is an amazing experience. I feel the kids that go to Redondo Beach schools and Hermosa schools, they should come and experience this. I mean, we don't have the time and you don't have the patience for me to tell you how great this program is. You seem to know, Mr. Light. You've seen it. Mr. Walters, I encourage you to come down and see it. There's nothing like kids who go to school. Look at where we live. We live in a beautiful spot. To not be able to take advantage of this type of education is crazy. We have to expand this. We have to get it out to all the other schools and get more kids involved in this. It's 1,500 kids. That's 1,500 families times 1,500 siblings who are learning about our ocean environment. And Julie, the way they take care of the environment and teach the kids about the ocean and the animals, it's like no other program that exists. And it's fantastic. And I can't support this program enough. So please, let's help it grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next card I have is from Susan Shield. And I know how to say her name now.
Hi, I'm Susanna Shield. I'm from the faraway land of Hermosa Beach, but we are spending a lot of money here in Redondo Beach. So please do consider Julie's program. As parents, we've heard that comment or that saying, raise a child up where you want them to go, and when they get older, they won't depart from it. And what's really important about that statement is that we have a classroom right here in California that's outdoors. Nobody else can experience this except for us here in Southern California or in California in general. So we're raising these next generation of conscious and people that are going to respect our communities and our oceans and our strand. So I think it's really important if you all could just take a moment of your time. I know how busy we are, but be a child and come down with us, see what Julie does and experience the ocean with Julie, and maybe just check out the children and see what the children are doing. But like my husband said, if we could get all the schools to appreciate what Julie's doing here with waterfront education, you're going to see a lot more happier people, a lot more cleaner oceans and a lot more cleaner strands, because the respect will be there, and the respect will be there for our animals. So we thank you so much for considering this great program, and we thank you so much, Redondo Beach, for bringing this to Hermosa Beach and the rest of the South Bay community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, and the last card I've got is Jody McGee.
Good evening, Harbor Commission. This is the first time I've been out in almost 2.5 years into a public arena, so it means a lot to me, and I'm very passionate about it because I have a 10-year-old child named Kinney. She's my 10-year-old daughter. I have lived here for over 31 years. I've been a homeowner for 25. I was also an educator with the Redondo Beach Union, RBUSD. And when I had my child, I decided to stay home. I would have the luxury of doing that. But in doing that, I decided to educate my daughter at home. I tried for the first year at RBUSD, but the educational situation for her just didn't meet her needs. And so I began to look for other opportunities. When I chose to do that, we went to Da Vinci schools. And in that, I had to homeschool for 3 days a week. And I found different programs. And one of the most amazing ones that I found was waterfront education. My daughter did their summer camp. She also did some other programs. But waterfront education has become a really huge part of my daughter's and her friends' experiences for school. At Waterfront Education, it offers their year-round labs. They have hands-on STEM, STEAM. They get to be on the water. They get to do the tide pools. They get to do sailing. There are so many different opportunities and different environmental education opportunities that I can see can expand beyond what they have now, but also what they offer here. And it is very unique. I have never seen as an educator in my life something that this is this unique, this homegrown, that is called at Redondo Beach. And seeing that potential to create a world or create an environment where we can make changes. Our children are going to be the change makers of this community as well as the South Bay. And I've seen my daughter and her friends grow so much in becoming environmentally aware, becoming how to save the planet, and also just becoming very locally collaborating together. And I feel that that's been really impactful for her through Waterfront Education. In the last year, as you can see, I have a mask on. We had to stay home for almost 2 years. And one of the only really big areas that she could do was Waterfront Education. And that was a lifeline for her. And so what I've seen happen with her, she just started sailing like 2 sessions ago. Her confidence, the way she brings herself into the car when she's done, the way she walks into that classroom, I have never seen her more motivated, more happy to make changes around that. And she tells her friends. We have 4 different families that we have brought in from just in the last 4 weeks into the sessions here that are outside of the South Bay area. They're in Marina Del Rey. They're in Westchester. One works for Google, and they are, because the mothers can educate their kids at home, and they have brought them down to here to do this. And speaking today, coming here, one of the mothers said, yeah, I just dropped
Time.
So thank you.
I Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's definitely cool to see a kid out in a sailboat, running the sailboat themselves, and given that responsibility. I'm out of cards. I'm not sure how this works. Do we have anyone else? Am I allowed to ask this? Do we have anyone else present who wants to speak? Or do we have to have a card?
That's right. No.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Here we go. Do the panic buttons work? I'm kidding.
Good evening, Commissioners and staff. Mark Hansen, King Harbor boater, proud founder and member of the advisory board for Waterfront Education. I would have had no idea 10 years ago when Julie and I started this, and we were just going to try to raise a little money for the boat parade and the sea fair, that almost 10 years later, Julie would have just run with this ball and created this phenomenal program. I am so proud of her. Julie and I over the last couple months have done a couple walking tours of the harbor, and I was able to get Ruby's unlocked, and we went into On the Rocks, and we went to Gold's Gym, and she went down to the Fun Factory. So we've walked this whole harbor trying to think very broadly with, of course, the whole harbor amenities plan going on that I'm serving on, where's the best location? And when we went into Joe's Crab Shack, her eyes just lit up. She said, this is the place. And, of course, we're looking over at the hand launch facility, knowing that we're going to improve that. And we're looking at the terrain and we go, oh, wow, that's easy. I mean, we can modify this super easy. As you heard, she's already got a bunch of paddle craft. And interestingly, during the amenities plan work, during one of the drawings, the consultant drew in some storage at Joe's Crab Shack, and I'm smiling. Okay, there we go. That's where Julie's paddlecraft go. I just recommended we just need to move it over to the corner closest to the launching over there. I think at this point, gosh, we got 4 organizations that all are interested. I mean, this is just a wealth that we've got here. Hard part's going to be figure out how to coordinate it all. But I think at this point, those of us who are serving on the working committee for the amenities plan, we've had a couple drawings, that showed the Seaside Lagoon with potential education facility written next to it, and but then one drawing expanded the lagoon, and that label went away. And so I think at this point, I think it's going to be pretty convincing that label needs to stay. This is the place for education. I think in closing, the only thing I would mention is you heard Julie say, in answer to your question, she's ready to move tomorrow. I'll go help move the paddlecraft over. So I think one of the things you guys might think about in your recommendations to City Council would be, is it time to go ahead and pull the trigger, on moving Joe's Crab Shack out, and we can get her over there moving right now, and continue to talk to all the other folks. Thanks. Hope that helps.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Any other comments from here in the room? Okay, I think then we go to, okay, sorry, going back to the commission for one comment.
I just want to make a brief comment. It's interesting to note, RBUSD probably gets twice the funding of homeschooled kids per student. However, of course, they have to pay for teachers and brick and mortar building and utilities and everything else. When I taught at Adams, we took field trips, but they were usually to places that were free, like Museum of Tolerance. I know we went to the Sea Lab one year, but I think for them, it does come down to the cost. The buses, of course, are quite a chunk of that money, and I don't know what the waterfront education costs per student or per class, but cost does end up entering into it as a big factor, even though, like I said, they get more money per student, but their costs are so much greater than a homeschool, or a homeschool has apparently a much bigger budget to be able to, or part of their budget to put aside for these kind of enriching experiences. And I don't think your average school district, they have the desire, trust me, they have the desire, but it's a budget issue. So.
Thanks, okay. I think we're going to comments on Zoom. So if anyone's out there in Zoom land, raise your hand.
We have 4 attendees at this time. Jean Fratello is, I'm going to go ahead and allow her to speak.
Hi, this is Jean Fratello. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, great. My name is Jean Fratello. I'm a resident of Manhattan Beach. And I want to thank you for all that you do for the harbors, and also thank you for listening to Julie. And I did leave a written comment, but hearing her presentation has just made me all excited about it all over again. Really, I think waterfront education is just such a jewel of education in Redondo Beach. The hands-on opportunities and experiential activities that you can't get in a classroom is just something that's so valuable. It has been so valuable to my son. He's been participating for the last 6 years. He's taken, I think, every possible class. He's a freshman in high school now. He goes to a full-time high school, but he has, because of his waterfront experiences, he's become an expert fisherman. He has his own saltwater aquariums. He's been a docent at Cabrillo Marine Aquarium and Aquarium of the Pacific. He joined the King Harbor Yacht Club. He is truly has his heart set on a career in marine sciences and marine biology, and it's absolutely due to all the experiences that he's had at waterfront education. He has all sorts of ideas about the redesign of a new facility, if anyone wants to listen to him on that. But just safe to say, it's been just an incredibly inspiring experience, and for more people to be able to experience that as well would just be fantastic. I think we're just so lucky to live in a place with so many resources and so many smart people like Julie and her team who can really just put it all together and make an incredible experience for students. So thank you so much. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Craig Funabashi, you can proceed.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Craig Funabashi. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I'm zooming in from my home here in Redondo Beach. I am an active boater, a boat owner, and regular racer in King Harbor. And having watched both presentations this evening, just really wanted to express my support for both programs. Being a Long Beach State dad, somewhat supportive, obviously, of their efforts and oceanography and the studies that will benefit us there. But I have to say, knowing Julie and Mark personally for many years now, very supportive, obviously, of the waterfront education program from its inception, not too many years ago, to the program that it's really grown into that Julie and her staff have created. It's really just wonderful. It obviously fills a niche. I think we are all very supportive of our Redondo Beach schools. And we understand the component, obviously, with the homeschooling and whatnot, but there are programs that are offered for adults, whether it's the full moon kayaking coming up or the fishing trips, just something for really everyone in the community. And to see the opportunity that has opened up at Joe's Crab Shack, and certainly understanding the logistics and location, would obviously, again, want to express my support for their program. And however, future funding and financing and all of that good stuff, I know obviously many times it's incremental, it's baby steps at first, but obviously I think it has the opportunity to grow exponentially. And so with that, I kind of say, if you build it, they will come. And as Mark Hansen expressed as well, would be more than happy to help move things over and get things set up. And, you know, again, to just be one to kind of rally the rest of the community around this because of how much I believe and support it as well. So thank you so much for letting me address you this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, the next attendee is Savine Mellinger. You can proceed.
My name is Sabina Mellinger, and I'm a resident of Manhattan Beach. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put that picture up. That's my son. But you see, he's adventurous. So my son has been with Julie and waterfront education for, I think it's 8 years, and I have seen him grow up in waterfront to a fantastic young man who goes there, and just the whole atmosphere of respect and children being taken where they are and helped along. And I really have to compliment Julie and her team on how uncomplicated and easy it is to go there. My son now rides his bike, and it's almost like a small town atmosphere where you just send your kid and you know your child goes to a place where it's safe and he learns, and they have so many ideas. I couldn't, I really have to say it's an amazing place, and I support this organization to the highest I can ever say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dave Fratello. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. And you did hear from Jean, but our whole family is just so appreciative of Waterfront. And Julie, just want to underscore the point. It's funny because it's Waterfront and it's ocean education, but I have to say, Julie and Waterfront lit a flame for our son. Kindled his interest in everything related to the water, sailing, fish, marine biology, and this is where his life is going. And you know, to this day, it's just about every weekend we've got him in the water someplace, or he's out fishing someplace. And at home we've got the aquarium. It all started with hands-on experience. And one of the things I think I've seen over time with our son's time at Waterfront is Julie's continuously attracting all kinds of other people as instructors and volunteers who are equally motivated, and they're so happy to share their knowledge. So we've bumped into maybe 24 different people who have come through the program at different times and have been inspirational. So I just would say, please do anything you can to keep Waterfront going, give them a good facility, make them an important part of the future of Redondo Beach and South Bay for the next generation.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Our next speaker is Clary Hernandez. She also has an e-comment. You can proceed.
Hello. Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sitlali, and I was a resident of Redondo Beach for the past 12 years before I moved to Wrightwood 6 months ago. My son attends Waterfront, and even up to this day, I make an hour and a half drive for him to attend. For example, tomorrow he's attending Blue Horizons program, and I am staying at Shade Hotel, so I am contributing to the city, and I'm also currently outside of Whole Foods shopping for some snacks for tonight and for him tomorrow. So I just wanted to let you know that I support Waterfront, and that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Wrightwood's beautiful and a long way away. Thanks for that long drive. Anyone else? Okay, I think that's it for Zoom, and we go to e-comments now.
We have one e-comment that was wrongfully put in another item on E1, but it's for L2. Angela Savala, to whom it may concern, I am a parent of a child who was severely bullied in public school. He is currently being homeschooled due to the fact I recently enrolled him in the Blue Discovery class through the Waterfront Education Program. From the minute we walked in, we were warmly greeted by the staff. When we walked into my child's class, the other kids in the class welcomed him right away. When I picked him up, he was so excited to tell me about what he did in the class. He made friends and was accepted very quickly, which is both necessary and vital to him being able to thrive in this world. He has attended a few classes since enrolling him and always looks forward to going back. I am only one parent that strongly supports programs like this. Being a mother of a child who was severely bullied, for him to be immediately accepted and welcome is both vital and necessary for him to be able to thrive in this world we are living in right now. These types of programs are priceless to these children to have experienced bullying, and to the mothers that have led to comfort the children due to the unfortunate experience. Many that is alluded to and through city councils could be better spent on programs like this instead of unnecessary, practically irrelevant to the human race, such as extravagant lunches and other unnecessary discretionary spending that we all know takes place for meeting locations, etc. These kids, which essentially are our future, need more of these types of supportive environments to be able to lead positive, secure lives. In turn, can bring more positive change to the world, which we will have the chance.
Thank you.
We have 8 more. Give me one moment. I'm sorry, 7. Okay, this is from Zachary Fratello. Waterfront education is a valuable part of the Redondo Beach community. Not only has it impacted my own life in the form of furthering my own knowledge and experience on the water, I know for a fact that it has done the same for plenty of others. The whole team is helpful and fun to work with, and the ability of the team to get people together helps provide immense services to the community, in which the time I've helped we've together collected hundreds of potentially thousands of pounds of trash and helped rescue several thousands of animals, from the seabirds to sea lions. The hands-on aspect, whether fishing, tide pulling, and other forms of observation and research dragged in curious minds from all over, and provides an invaluable benefit to the community. Please offer support to the waterfront education.
Thank you.
Gregory Brubaker. Waterfront education has been a great public resource for families from all over the South Bay. Waterfront education has taught my son about water safety, marine life, and environmental awareness. Just Just this past Earth Day, my son and I participated in a harbor and beach cleanup that netted tons of trash. Please support the institution around the harbor. Lashmi Malhotra. We are writing to show our support for the waterfront education. Our family has been able to access so many materials and opportunities through the program. In fact, on Halloween, we participated in an Ocean Warriors Day, and we were able to pick up approximately 10 pounds of trash that would have harmed marine life in Redondo Beach water. Waterfront education not only helps the community, but also teaches kids about marine life. We are thankful for this program and hope that it continues to grow and foster here. Karina and Anyana Malhotra. Charles Wood. My name is Charlie Woods. I am an outdoor environmental educator and recent employee with Waterfront Education. The program I have participated in and seen taking place at Waterfront Education have proved to be wonderful educational opportunities for the general public to learn about protecting the harbor and its natural ocean environment. Just this past Earth Day weekend, I helped organize and participated in an ocean and beach cleanup. We collected over 70 pounds of trash. We are at a critical time with our connection to the environment. Humans are polluting and trashing the environment. We are at a tipping point. Waterfront education is helping to tip the balance in a better discretion by educating youth and the public to be knowledgeable and care for the environment. We have reached a point where our natural environment can no longer survive if the general public continues living its unsustainable way. Alongside other initiatives, education is key to moving forward with positive interactions with our natural environment. Waterfront education is that key. Dave Fratello. Alicia Body. Dave Fratello. While our family is from neighboring Manhattan Beach, we are enormous fans of waterfront education. Julie and her team over the years have hosted a wide range of programs of interest to our family and essentially to one of our children. It is not too much to say that our son was inspired into a life now full of fishing, sailing, marine biology, and interest in all things ocean, thanks to the opportunities to waterfront. From aquarium building to sailing lessons to fishing trips to regular kayak harbor cleanups, Julie's and waterfront services offer local families and kids a chance to truly engage. We all live so near to the magical ocean. Waterfront gives kids real experiences that help them see, feel, and understand the sea and all the life in it. Please keep this going. Waterfront education, an important part of the future in Redondo Beach. Thank you. Alicia Body. As a Redondo Beach family, I am writing in support of waterfront education, providing programming at the future educational facility at the waterfront. Waterfront education provides incredible access to our children to learn more about the waterfront they call home. The staff is knowledgeable, friendly, and most importantly, passionate about sharing their expertise with our children. This opportunity would allow them to expand their reach and provide greater impact to the South Bay. They are encouraged a new generation to help preserve our waterfront, and their work must continue. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, thanks to everyone who submitted e-comments. I think that concludes comment. Going back to, go
Back to
ahead.
the dais.
Yeah, back to the dais.
You'll notice I was rather quiet tonight. I've supported waterfront education since its inception. I strongly support it. I just want to make sure that whatever happens with our waterfront education development, that we don't pass up hands-on, on the water experiences for only classroom education. you can get classroom education anywhere, including online, but hands-on, being outside, on the water, on the beach is very different. So I'd like to make sure that that's included.
Thanks. Commissioner Light.
Thank you. Director Kapovich, is there anybody on city staff that's charged with kind of running with the ball on this? Or we've got, a number of educational opportunities or educational organizations that want to do something in the harbor. We seem to be focusing on Joe's Crab Shack. We provided that direction to the council and to the subcommittee. But there's a lot of integration that has to go on here. Is there anybody from city staff that's kind of bird dogging this to bring it to closure?
Great question, Commissioner Light. So where we're at with the process with the amenities plan is simply that it's the vision, right? And we've got all these different components, educational facility being one of them. What we're trying to do with the amenities plan right now currently is scope it out. Let's see what the size is going to be. Where are these things going to be located? We're not really getting into the details of number of docks and specific programming. The presentations that have been before you the last 2 months have been just ideas for what it could be. Eventually, if and when the amenities plan is adopted, what it'll then turn over into is staff taking the lead and essentially creating requests for proposals for all these different elements, educational facility being one of them, and essentially coming out with bids that we will then review and take a look at on a case-by-case basis to see who, whether it be Julie and her group or some other group or a combination of both, in terms of what they plan to do. Do they want to just raise the Joe's Crab Shack site? Do they want to reutilize the existing building? There's all these components, as you say, the details will be in that RFP process. And during that process, there'll be more public hearings to look at exactly how this thing's going to be planned out. So essentially, yes, it falls to staff, but a part of the amenities plan will be an implementation plan that'll have some, it'll list all the RFPs that need to occur, but it'll prioritize which one should come first, second, third, fourth, if that makes sense.
So I appreciate that. And I kind of understood, amenities plans, big blocks, and then there's the implementation plan to follow. My concern is that if you just write an RFP, we're kind of at the mercy of who responds. And I hate to lose this opportunity. Some of these are once in a lifetime opportunities for this community and for this harbor. And I think, it's the opportunity to make it something different from the surrounding beach cities, because they don't have a harbor, and even some of the other harbors that we potentially compete with up and down the coast, like the Shark Lab. They're going to go somewhere. We've heard about the aquaculture. He's going to do something somewhere. And I'm afraid if we wait to do the amenities plan, then an RFP, which an RFP doesn't require anybody to integrate anything. They can just throw their own idea out. And we may be throwing out 2 good ideas because we didn't integrate properly, right? Because of the process. And so I'm very concerned about this. I'm passionate about making something educational and unique for our harbor that's not just educational, but it's a draw to the harbor as well. And so it's kind of a self-feeding activity. And I'm concerned that we've slid the other way. We've lost the sea bass grow-out facility. Sea Lab is, you're in a construction site now working, out of less than ideal situations. And it's hard to get grants when you don't have a commitment from a city. And so far, I think all 3 of these have been 501c3. So how are they going to even compete in an RFP process? So I'm very concerned about the direction this is going. And, as a harbor commissioner, I'd just like to see somebody have the ball to drive this to a conclusion that is best for the city and not good for one person that responds to an RFP. And I'm wondering if, I don't think it's right for the subcommittee on the amenities plan to do it because it's too in the weeds. It's one specific amenity. So I'm just toying and I'm brainstorming out loud. Whether we form a subcommittee, and I don't know if you'd be willing to put a city staff person to collaborate with us, but for us to reach out to these different organizations and put together a recommendation to the city on how to move forward that's in parallel with the amenities plan rather than waiting till the end and then starting that process. Because I sense time is of the essence.
on some of these. Julie needs something now. The two others we've heard are looking for places to go, and they're not going to sit around and wait for us to get our act together. So what's your thoughts on something like that?
I think you're on the right track. You know, it's government, right? It's the amenities plan has to be this big public outreach. We've got to hear from the community. We've got to make sure that we have buy-off on what we're proposing for the vision. It's hard to start worrying about one specific aspect before that vision is complete, but I understand your concerns in terms of the timing. You know, when it comes to staff and going through the process after the vision has been established and we start going through that RFP process, you know, that can incorporate more than just staff. That can incorporate people like yourselves reaching out to people like Julie to let them know of the process, to let them know of the RFP.
Well, I know we're jumping the gun, but when do you think the amenities plan will get approved by the council?
Well, that's the next item on the agenda.
I know, but just a shortcut, what's the date that you?
September.
For
review.
And that's my concern is we're losing half a year.
It's lost in translation. Yeah.
Yes. So if I were to propose that, would you support putting a staff person to support us?
I would be that person, absolutely.
You would be that person?
I would be that person. You know, are we talking just an outreach component in terms of?
Well, I mean, I'm just brainstorming here.
Right.
I would actually have them, you know, formulate a recommendation to council on how to move forward on the education element, regardless whether it's at Joe's Crab Shack or some other site.
Yeah, the idea was
and to reach out to these folks because, you know, we've heard from aquaculture, they want 1 zillion square feet. We heard 5,000 to 10,000 from Shark Lab. Julie, you know, didn't really lay down requirements. But if we could integrate that and come up with a recommendation, well, maybe this one doesn't fit. And so we integrate these two. And, you know, I'm just looking at having some concrete way to go forward and then look and explore where can we get grant monies for that vision versus waiting for an RFP process and let the city drive this, not and integrate it, not wait for a single entity to put together an RFP. And maybe we go that way, maybe that's a recommendation, but I'd rather do the upfront work and see if we can come up with something that moves the needle forward without waiting so long to get to step one.
Well, what I'll say is I'll let the discussion kind of take place in terms of where this falls, but I can commit myself to being a part of that.
Okay, thank
if
you.
it lands there.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, one of my first motion is to receive and file Julie's report, which can we take care of that right now?
Sure. So
I'd like to move to
okay.
receive and file.
Motion to receive and file. Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And then I'd like to.
Thank you.
You know, if you want, I'll propose a motion right now, but I'd rather have the discussion.
Yeah,
amongst
let's have a little more discussion.
Okay.
I see your hand up. I'll go first. I'll agree with you, and I'll say I think the amenities. I understand the amenities plan has to play out. And we need public input. I was really hoping to see the amenities plan, you know, make some drawings, move some big blocks around, and it's really done a great job of that. I know it's not done yet and blessed yet, but in particular when they move the big blocks around the sport fishing pier. I hate calling it the sport fishing pier. We should rename it the short pier. You know, there's a question of whether or not we keep the short pier, but seeing that whole area where you've got potentially an educational facility next to an improved hand launch, next to a small working pier, separated from the boat ramp, you know, seeing that whole package together made me really excited about that little neighborhood and getting, you know, an educational facility in next to a hand launch, next to Seaside Lagoon where you could teach kids to swim or teach kids to kayak, you know, that little package, the amenities plan really did its job for me with that alone. And then again, I'll go back and say what I said about C-Lab earlier. You know, we saw that this can be a chicken and an egg thing, and C-Lab had an existing program, existing funding, but when they lost their address, when they lost their long-term commitment, they went away. We could potentially get them back. The roots of that program are still going in the county, but without that commitment, they couldn't be there. So, you know, having the city make a commitment, timing that carefully with public input in the amenities plan could really help, you know, these things turn into something much more quickly. They're, you know, there is money out there for infrastructure, there's money out there for education. So, you know, I'm in favor of recommending something here and going to the city council. So I like what you're saying. Sorry, I'm not sure who was up next. Commissioner Walters.
Yeah, just curious, what is the situation with the Joe's lease? Is that, what's this, is it? 6 months?
Lori's got the specifics, but it's month to month at this point. Am I right, Lori?
And furthermore, the city council made an investment to bring it to month to month.
Right.
Right, okay. So that's effectively, they can be moved at any time almost, right?
Yeah, Greg and I spoke about this recently. I believe it's, we just need to provide Joe's Crab Shack with a 60-day notice.
Okay.
And we have already paid in advance the termination payment.
So 60 days and then they have 30 days, or is it 60 days and they're out?
60 days and they're
60
out.
days.
Okay. I'm not familiar with what the city council has decided or not regarding the facility or Joe's Crab Shack. But has a decision been made that the educational facility will be rent-free? The city's going to give up that rent?
None of those details have been decided.
Okay. So, I mean, back to Commissioner Light's point here on the other subcommittee. Honestly, I'm not sure if I totally agree with what's being proposed there. I don't see why not, because we got 3 members on this subcommittee already for the amenities plan. Why couldn't these ideas be presented and included as part of that public process? And so we don't have to do another go around of this. You see what I'm getting at? Is there anything wrong with that?
It'll take too long.
I think essentially it's out of scope to the amenities plan. It would be like saying, one part of the amenities plan might say we should have a restaurant here, we should have a food truck here. It would be like picking the exact food truck.
Okay, I don't know if I agree that it's out of scope. I'll be frank with you. I don't agree that's necessarily out of scope.
The scope of the vision of the amenities plan is that there's an educational facility somewhere in the waterfront, right? We know that today because of the surveys and from the input that we've got from the community. We know an educational facility is supported.
Right,
That we
but
know for sure.
we've seen already 3 different ideas. 1 or 2 or 3 maybe could go with the amenities proposal or design. One might come out being a better fit for what's being proposed there. So I don't understand why these ideas couldn't be reviewed as part of that subcommittee group and at least attached as appendices or because that plan's going to go through a public process, is it not?
The public amenities plan, it is, right?
Yes.
Right.
So I don't understand why these ideas couldn't be presented as possible ideas in front of an RFP process. So these ideas are already out there.
Because there's an environmental review that goes along with any kind of a specific plan or amenities plan. It's conceptual in scope. So when you're doing the environmental analysis for such a plan, it's conceptual as well. And individual environmental impacts are then measured when the individual projects come into the fore. And we're reviewing these on a case-by-case basis with that much detail, right? We don't know whether Julie's going to use the existing building or somebody else is going to raise it. That completely changes the environmental analysis.
I understand, but these are all concepts still. I mean, what Julie presented was conceptual.
Right.
The other 2 ideas we had were conceptual. There's nothing necessarily firm or concrete. I'm just saying, why can't these ideas be brought through that process that's already in place, that's going to be completed here? Now, you can still have your RFP process, which it sounds like we're stuck with. Are we stuck with a legal RFP process or not? Because Commissioner Light seems to think we're not stuck with it. Are
Well,
we?
it depends what you're going to do with it. If it's a public facility and we get grants for it, the city can do it. And then they can decide how to lease it out to different entities.
Then if we're not stuck with an RFP process and we have an existing public process that's moving forward with amenities, I don't understand why these ideas couldn't be presented there in concept.
I think Commissioner Carlson probably nailed it in that, we didn't know when the vision was starting in October of 2021 that we would have 3 or 4 people knocking on our doors about this educational facility. So we kept everything broad scale. Since then, we've got a few people, knocking on our door, and now we've got questions about what these details could be. But at this point, to bring those details into the vision would only delay that vision 6, 7, 8 months to get that stuff in there at this point.
I don't understand why that would delay anything, quite frankly. But I don't know what then this subcommittee, what value this subcommittee is going to offer, because you're telling me we got a lot of roadblocks ahead of us regardless.
I don't know if they're roadblocks. It's just a matter of getting the input from the public.
What value is the subcommittee going to offer them?
It's in parallel, and it doesn't wait for the final approval of the amenities plan to start moving forward on this, which was the plan before, was to wait till the council approves the vision, then start the implementation plan, which this is only one piece of that whole implementation plan. We could take some of the action to go in parallel and accelerate this first one because of some time dependencies of some potential people coming into the harbor and doing great things. That's my view of why we separate it.
Yeah, Roger, could we just have a motion to form a subcommittee to?
I didn't make the motion because he wanted to have this.
Sorry, let me ask one follow-up question. Which subcommittee are you questioning? The existing subcommittee for the amenities plan or the proposed? The proposed subcommittee for, okay.
The proposed, I guess I'm a little curious as to what the value of that subcommittee is, because we already have a process with the amenities plan in our subcommittee that we're a part of. Well, what additional value is it going to offer?
Well, because it's a specific, it's the specific implementation of a small piece. You're accelerating a specific implementation piece of the amenities program, assuming that you're going to have an educational facility. And we could assume that at this point, maybe we're kind of having almost like a parallel effort that's optimizing the educational facility.
So the amenities, the amenities plan is supposed to end the 23rd of May. We have to, I think, to integrate this, we're going to have to sit down with each of these groups and see what we can mash together, what kind of size and scope of the facility. You don't want to delay that 23rd May date to go do this on the subcommittee.
Yeah, I would say the amenities plan has done its job once it is done. When, for example, originally the boat ramp was going to go where Joe's Crab Shack is. So the amenities plan has done its job by putting the boat ramp in what I think is a better place, separated from the hand launch by a short pier, so you're separating the traffic, making things safer, and getting a public blessing on that plan. And then later you go out and implement the specifics of that. What exactly goes on that pier, what exactly the detailed layout is of that boat ramp. And this would be accelerating the public education section.
So
and going into
is
further
the
detail
subcommittee
there.
going to make a recommendation back to the commission what is going to be implemented there?
And then to the council would be my vision.
Well, it depends on what the motion is, but that's potentially the motion.
So we would take it away from the RFP process is what I'm hearing.
You may go to an RFP.
No.
It depends
The way
probably
the way I'm understanding this is, before all this started, the idea was to get the public amenities plan approved to create a pathway for how we individually get all this stuff done, right? Through this process, it seems like the educational facility is leading the charge for most likely to get done as the first component. I don't know if that's true or not. It just seems like that, okay? This subcommittee would essentially take the role of coordinating these groups, and while the amenities plan and my staff are taking that through so that we can get it done and approved and reviewed by September, but this group would then push along the educational facility so that it's not waiting until after the vision to get started, but rather get it along so that by the time the vision was approved, they're a lot further along in the design concepts than they were just a few months before. So it's saving a little bit of time, but I think it's, from what I'm hearing, worth the time.
But you're still going to have an RFP process. Just those folks will be a little bit more ahead of the curve because they would already further their designs along working with the subcommittees.
Well, they'll be a little further along, and the subcommittee will provide a recommendation for how they think the education facility should operate and be programmed? Is it one of these groups? Is it all three? How does it really work?
Yeah, or potentially is it even, groups that haven't shown up yet or,
Right. Is it a
fifth
group we haven't
entirely.
heard from yet? Correct. It's the outreach. We've heard from 3 groups. Maybe there's more out there.
But another potential, thought experiment scenario would be no RFP. We forget about the timing, but, we go to this subcommittee, comes back to us, goes to the city council, recommends to the city council that Joe's Crab Shack, as it is handed over to Waterfront Education for free. And that moves forward with no RFP at all. And it wouldn't happen in 61 days, but I'm proposing that as a thought experiment where there's no RFP.
It could be a phased one, where
and
that's the
then
first thing you do.
In addition, after that, there's, further design work, further refinement. Maybe there's RFPs that follow that. And I'm not making a motion here. I'm just discussing a scenario where it's, all people who are in this room or are often in this room, and we handle it internally. Commissioner Gilroy.
Of course, there's the danger that people who have participated in the public amenities plan will feel like we're ignoring their thoughts and processes and whatnot,
Yeah, and
jumping in.
I want to be very
However-
careful not to do that. Thank you.
However, I think we're pretty safe ground here with regards to the educational component of the public amenities plan, that I can't imagine taking any flack from the public about moving ahead with this component of it. And having said that, Long Beach looks like they've got some great ideas. They got a great model to work from. I wouldn't be in favor of ruling anybody out at this point. However, we have an education facility right now in the harbor. That's already a done deal. Their program's been here, and it's been operating, and it's been functional. In the short term, I think we can support that program and have them move into Joe's Crab Shack, which they say they can use pretty much as is. And that doesn't mean that spot is going to be the spot in the public amenities plan. It doesn't mean that they're guaranteed the only education program that's going to be in the harbor, period. One does not mean the other. And to Commissioner Light's point about, we've got some fish on the line, it would be, what a pun, sorry for that metaphor or whatever.
No, you're not.
We have a fish on the line, and it would be terrible to lose contact with these groups. So, for instance, with the Long Beach group, they're saying now they're going to need to make a decision about a year from now, but they don't have a business plan. So even the idea of an RFP is not really going to work for them at this point. But staying in contact with them makes sense. Staying in contact and maybe working with them to develop a business plan that would work for us as well as them kind of makes sense. And that doesn't preclude anybody else. It just keeps them and us talking and conversing and keeping them, letting them know we are still interested in their proposals. And whether that ends up being a shared space with the waterfront education program, whether there's some other formula that fits, I think that's still wide open. I don't think moving forward with Joe's Crab Shack with the waterfront education having that property in the short term precludes or puts anything in stone. So, that's maybe for a motion to be made at another time. I don't know when that's appropriate, but I'd be supportive of that, at least, like I said, in the short term.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Commissioner Zahn.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I like Commissioner Light's idea. I think that obviously you can only get to a certain point. You can't get too far ahead of the amenities plan completing and getting approved, but you do save a lot of time in figuring out the plan and that outreach and gathering inputs of what this could be and just gets more people thinking about the potential. And I think accelerating all of that has a lot of community buy-in that would be really good, so.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Walters,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the discussion's been good. I think I'm overall, in general, support of that idea that if we're working with groups, simply to flesh out their ideas and their designs, possibly ahead of an RFP process, maybe not. It seems to make some sense to me. I think Commissioner Kilroy's comment's correct. I think staying in touch with these folks is not a bad idea. It's probably a very good idea. So I think in general, I'll be supportive of it. I would only caution that whatever motion we put forward here, Commissioner Light, we craft the scope such that we don't intervene with anything that the existing amenities plan committee is doing and don't ruffle any feathers.
And we should also keep in mind the motion we made last month to, bless what we saw last month and encourage further conversation with the city manager on that. We're still in discussion on item L2. I'm not sure how this works. I should, I'm the chairman. But I had a follow-up question for you, Julie. What does your facility look like 9 to 5? If the public, if you were queen of the world and you had the whole thing to yourself, 7 days a week, 9 to 5, whatever, do you have a plan for a public-facing section of waterfront education as well? Somebody just walked up and walked in the front door without being part of a class. What would they do or see?
Presently or in the future?
I know presently. I know the answer is, that it's all programmed.
Right.
But future, I guess.
Well, it's interesting having this discussion, and I fully support a short-term plan because that at least gets something visible there, and it sets a precedent for what can be there. And we're certainly happy to lead the charge and continue those discussions because grant processes do take time. And when you're there and working with different groups, because it's not just the building, you don't want to just tear down a building right away. You want to figure out what your needs are, particularly in the nonprofit world. We don't have extra money to spend if we make a mistake in the planning. So that part of the process, I think, is very important. And I think it is going to take input to get a drawing that the public can see, like, okay, here's what we envision. And the groups that, I've seen presentations from, certainly we can work with. We've been in the harbor now quite a while. And doing a shark display, absolutely. I mean, and including what they're doing, sea farming and the aquaculture. Maria and I had that particular dream at Sea Lab. We were trying to make it happen, but we didn't have the long-term commitments to be able to let some of these people who have 5-year grants come in and work with the kids on it. These are all good educational opportunities. I think to get in there short-term, get the ball rolling, and then we envision it as a group of educators and make it a little bit easier for you guys. And we start bringing in, some of the heavy guns. I talked to, some of you may know Linda Chilton over at Sea Grant. She was instrumental in getting us into LAUSD. These are people who are from here that have pedigrees, that are in institutions like USC. So I think we can make that part of the process happen. I think the short-term part of it is, yes, they're on a month-to-month, We have no problem going in and saying, okay, maybe we're free today, maybe we're not free tomorrow. There's too many financial pieces that still have to be figured out. But in working and doing visioning work with corporations, you got to start the ball rolling. All those other discussions can happen, all that input can happen, but let's start working in the area that we think we want an education facility. We may get down there and find out, no, this is a bad place. We don't know. I don't know because I haven't done long-term programming and educating out of that part of the harbor. I've done things over at Portofino. I've done things over at South Bay Sailing. I've done things at the Yacht Club. But to be there day in and day out, that's when we'll figure out what we don't know right now, because there's stuff that we don't know. And we won't know that until we get there.
But I would be happy to sit on any committees. I'd be happy to bring in resources who support us on a much higher level than we see just within our community. They're supporting all of Southern California with outdoor and marine science education. So I think things in parallel are good. I think bringing in more groups and collaborating are good. I think what we need our city leaders is like, it's great to have these groups, but you're looking at the whole harbor, which is amazing. And you're looking at the future of the harbor. And if those of you who have not been down to Newport Beach, I highly suggest a field trip down there. The city did a fantastic job putting in their facilities down there. They have a building that has their sailing center with a little restaurant, and then they also have their community building. They have a beautiful public dock along with, a public hoist and some slips. And they have a mother's beach and they have the bathrooms. So they did some of that high level block shifting around that you're talking about. And the other thing that comes in is very hard to paint a picture for grants, long-term grants, without a visual, but all the pieces behind it and the long-term commitment of the city. And I don't think you can get that long-term commitment, it's the chicken and egg thing, until you put a visual out there. I mean, a building is a building is a building, and it can be lots of different colors and it can have lots of different functionality. But let's kind of get out there and get working with it. I have no problem starting to work with the shark guy tomorrow. I mean, I need shark experts. I mean, we did shark excursion, and our person that we used has since moved on. So there is no reason why we can't start these discussions sooner rather than later. And instead of these big visions, start small. What does aquaculture look like on a small classroom level basis? What do sharks excursions for the public look like? I know what they look like. You use one of the local boats, you hire them, you get your shark scientist, you go out to the continental shelf, you teach the kids while they're all sitting there waiting and eating their lunch and sometimes barfing. You teach them about what's going on, type of thing. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So I would just say, let's start in small chunks that are manageable, and then we can build to the big vision. So anything we can do to help facilitate that, I don't know if that totally answered your question.
Yeah, it does, thanks. And it's kind of what I've been thinking in the back of my head. The last month we saw, I wouldn't just say aquaculture, but last month we saw, kind of a template. We saw the vision for a facility that could present a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Shark Lab and other things could be something that programs that facility, and then you could be the main occupants of that facility and also help program it and use a lot of ways.
Right. And you're taking a look at the shark person, it's not
things.
even a nonprofit right now. So it's like I said, we have the infrastructure. And when you talk about like, what does that look like to the public? I know, it's not an aquarium, but you're going to want to talk about, what we have there, the fact that there's the trench there, what that means to sea life that comes in, why the whales will follow things in there. And then you're also going to want the mechanics of the wind, the robotics, all these things can be done in a small scale. Then you scale them up and go ask for the big money. You don't say, hey, Chevron, I want, $500 to do my little ROV program. You say, hey, we want to have, an ROV, display, and we want you guys to be a part of it, So then you start to have these collaborations between corporations and nonprofits that benefit our community as a whole, which I think is super important, because I don't come from city life, but it kind of seems like you're from like nonprofit world, you don't have a lot of big coffers. So the more you can create these partnerships, and then what follows from the corporations, you'll get the grants and you'll get the private donors. So.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stick around.
Any other discussion from the council or any motion at this
I'm
point?
ready to make a motion if you're ready.
We're waiting.
Okay.
About time.
So I'd like to make a motion that first that the existing subcommittee for the amenities plan continue to promulgate what we've heard and discussed here to the extent that's required for that activity. So that's part one of the motion. The second part is to form a subcommittee of 3 people and working with the director on integrating these different educational opportunities and coming up with a recommendation to the council on what an educational facility should look like, and recommendations on how to execute that, not just put out an RFP, but it may be another route. And I would target I think reasonably that we come back to the commission in the meeting in August, and then with the idea of, with the commission's permission, going to the city council. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Question, don't you think August is kind of cutting it close?
I think personally, I think to talk to the three groups and then to integrate and then go back again, I think it's going to require some going back and forth.
Okay.
And so I think amongst,
Yeah, I
people's
just don't want
times
to
and
cut
schedules.
I just don't want to cut it so close that we're like, can we get it to the city council?
Well, I think, if we could push it faster, assuming who's going to be on it, we will, but I don't want to drive it to an unrealistic schedule.
I had a similar thought on schedule, and I'm wondering how the budget process works. Because the city council budget goes in, I think, 6 days. And so unless we get this done in 6 days, do we not get it done for a year?
So obviously, everything's got tentacles, right? Budget being inclusive. We're right now going through the budget process. You heard from the city manager last Harbor Commission meeting. The finance director is going through a draft of that version and plans to return at our June 13th meeting to go over essentially the results of your input from the April Harbor Commission meeting. That provides about a week of time between the Harbor Commission meeting and when that proposal goes in front of city council. Historically, this group has created a letter that kind of supports the budget or doesn't and has comments. So we'd have a week to kind of prepare that. The one thing I do want to caution is sending an aggressive educational facility date of August or September would essentially get your recommendation to city council before the vision was before the city council. So yes, we've heard from the public. Yes, we've had community outreach and we've had announcements and results of those. So I'm sure some of this information has trickled to council, but technically they haven't got a report on any of this yet, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So while I appreciate Commissioner Light, you're trying to do everything you can to speed up the waterfront process so that we're not waiting as long once the vision is established, I still want the vision established.
So what's your recommendation?
Well, I would say save September for the vision. We're on track for that. I say review by city council of the vision because I don't want to put words in their mouth of which direction they're going to go on the decision. But essentially they'll review it in September. And if we have our ducks in a line based on this subcommittee, we could get into city council right afterwards, first meeting in October-ish. But that way, they've at least seen the community output, the community input that everyone here has been kind of hyper in tune to. They've rendered a decision on the vision, and now they're just not waiting as long for this educational component to come back to them. It's almost immediate because you have been working alongside.
I just don't see a problem with putting it on the shelf until we take it to the council. I'd rather drive ourselves on a schedule and have something in the plan. And then if we don't meet it, we need an extra month, we're still good.
I'm okay with you guys going as fast as you want. I just don't want to go to council until after the vision's been approved.
Okay. And Roger, I think I would amend because of the budget inputs, there may be some early low-hanging fruit that we could make a recommendation, that the subcommittee could make a recommendation. So maybe a monthly update to the commission on progress.
Yeah. Obviously, I still worry about budget at the city council level. And I think about this being in a decision package. I would love to advise city council.
That's why I say if we had a month,
sooner rather than later.
If we had an early input, we could potentially put a wedge in.
Yeah. And do we know if anything is proceeding with aquaculture at the city manager level? Because it seemed like the city manager was having direct discussions with Tom Grimm, and, we approved further discussions last month.
Right.
So I would hate to have, Mike not aware that we have, one or two other
Well,
very favorable options.
sure. I think those discussions are still ongoing between the presentation last month and the city manager. I think a way in which you could, mimic your previous recommendation is to simply, I think the last recommendation from April was that you support the program, that you continue the working relationship between the city manager. You could do that for these two as well if you're so inclined, but then also add this subcommittee component to make sure that the working progress gets done at the same time. It's not just relying on staff. Once we're done with the vision, it's the subcommittee that's helping staff push this along so that the gap isn't so much once the vision is established. So you can essentially go on the record and say, we support these two as well. We wish that they also speak with the city manager, and then you form the subcommittee to, not just for the three of them, but for potentially ones we haven't heard about yet, get them into the fold.
I feel like with the amended minutes, we already talked about the other ones, right? So we should have been prepping the battlefield there.
I feel like at a minimum, we should pass a motion supporting one or two of these, or at least vote on a motion. I shouldn't say pass. We should vote on a motion
to engage in further discussions
with these, as we did with the one last
month. So
month.
I amend my motion to include that.
And, I still wonder if we should somehow give the city council a heads up in addition to the city manager. And if we should also potentially give the city council a heads up that, the income from Joe's Crab Shack could stop at one point, potentially in the next fiscal year, which I think is in line with what they already expect, given, what was it, $750,000 they spent to enable that?
Right.
So I feel like, unless, it would be a shame to have spent $750 million, $750,000, and, for no reason, and let that contract run itself all the way out. So
right.
I'm not sure what that's done to your motion.
I think we're getting too in the weeds. I think the subcommittee, working with the director, can inform the city council if this is going on.
Fair enough.
And so, I'd like to, I don't mind adding the specifics that the city in general should engage with these other potential educational facilities, but that let the subcommittee come up with specific recommendations on how to move forward.
Would it be fair to ask these educational institutions, for lack of a better term, to make a part of the amendment, to have staff work with these educational institutions to prepare a hard proposal for what they want?
I think we can negotiate that as part of the subcommittee. I don't want to, because, we could ask for something now and then it could change in their first discussions. And I've got an idea of a process to bring them together and to vet it and come up with a recommendation. I've had to do that for multiple satellites at a launch base. So I have a vision of how to do that in an environment where they're not they're not used to working together or haven't worked together in the past. I don't want to preclude that by asking for something as part of this motion. And obviously, I'd like to be on the subcommittee, but that'll be the next.
I think in the least, you have some fact finding with at least 3 specific organizations. And from that, you might come back and have recommendations to staff of like, well, there are these holes or questions that we would need to then figure out to then help bring one or more of them on site. That seems like an obvious thing you'd get out of it in the least.
Well, that's fine. I'll let this motion work its course, but I have another motion that I'll make afterwards. They're not competing motions.
Okay.
They're not competing motions.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you restate your motion?
I knew you were going to do that.
Well, if I'm not clear, they're probably not clear as well. So,
you guys know what I asked for? Okay, I'll go through it. So number 1, that the subcommittee for the amenities plan promulgate generally what we've discussed here, that, we're looking at multiple uses of an education facility, even to the extent of listing potential candidates, but going to whatever level you do in that amenities plan without extending it. Second is to form a subcommittee of 3 with support from the director to come up with a recommendation on how to proceed with an educational facility in the harbor, complete with implementation recommendations, and that we target an August date with monthly updates that we provide to the commission. And was there one other thing that you wanted to?
You already seconded the motion.
Okay, thanks. And I don't believe that motion has changed significantly from what you had originally said, so I believe your second still stands after all this discussion.
Yes. I added the monthly in there.
Okay,
And I'm fine with the monthly.
thanks, okay. All right, any further discussion, or should we go for a vote?
Let's go for a vote.
Okay. Do you think we need a roll call vote or a voice vote?
Voice.
Okay. All in favor of the motion as proposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Now we have to
unanimous,
pick who's
thank
on
you.
it.
Go ahead, sir. It's your
Well, I'd
motion.
like to volunteer as well.
Any other volunteers?
I'd love to be on it.
Okay, there's our
3?
3.
So my only question is, Roger, you've dealt with 2 of these organizations, potentially all 3. I think you'd be a valuable member.
No, I can back down and let Roger do it.
I'm asking if he's interested.
I'll say what I always say. I'm certainly interested or I wouldn't be here, and I have the time, but I feel like I'm on every subcommittee. Because I always say that, and, here we are. So,
I will withdraw my volunteer position. Yes. And if you would like to be on it.
you have a lot of experience with waterfront education. Their Shark Lab guys are not that developed. I think you would be fine as well. Up to you.
I think he's saying he went to you, Vicky.
Pardon me?
I think he went to you, Vicky.
I'll be happy to stay on.
So I'll make the motion that Tom, Vicky, and myself be on that subcommittee.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks.
And I have another motion.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the motion I wanted to make was that we recommend that the city council work with the director to activate the Joe's Crab Shack space as an educational facility as soon as possible with existing educational institutions interested in that space, with no guarantee that it is a permanent location in the harbor amenities plan. But there's no reason not to go ahead and activate that space. As you said, they spent the $750,000 to buy out the lease, and it's wasted money unless you actually go in there then and use it. Because the alternative is Joe's Crab Shack ends up running out its lease, in which case $750,000 was a total waste down the toilet. So to me, we've got somebody who's interested in it right now. We can activate that space right now. Doesn't have to be any kind of guarantee, and doesn't have to be seen as a leapfrogging or
A guarantee or a placeholder.
a placeholder for anything in the public amenities plan. The public amenities plan, if that space ends up needing to be used for some other activity, then that's what happens. It's not a long-term thing, but there's no reason why it shouldn't get started ASAP. So that's my motion.
Second.
Well, I guess we could go, if we'd like to
Let's have
discuss.
discussion. Go ahead, sir. Commissioner Bauer, go ahead.
Yeah, just as a point of discussion, just from the financial standpoint, it's like when you bought out the lease of the Fun Factory, they spend all kinds of money doing that, and it's now sitting empty. So essentially, it was a bunch of money spent on, that is hurting the harbor financially at this point. And even here, I mean, if it makes sense to, what you're talking about is saying buying out the lease and then offering this building for free right now, right?
I didn't say for free. I'll let them work out the details.
Okay.
I don't know what the financials are.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know how that budget part works.
We don't have budgetary power here, so this is literally out of our pay grade, us being all, free volunteers. So that would be a problem for the city council.
Maybe the director can come up with a plan with an entity that makes financial sense for the city moving forward, at least in the short term, and the city council gives it the thumbs up. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But I don't think it hurts us to make the recommendation that they pursue that for the short term. I mean, like ASAP.
It would have to pass their vote. Commissioner Light.
So, I mean, I don't know if you know or you can divulge what's the revenue loss to the harbor enterprise if we shut down Joe's Crab Shack now?
You got that one?
Yeah, I just happen to have the termination letter open. So they currently pay a minimum monthly rent of $16,000. And
A month.
A month. That's a minimum.
Plus sales tax.
Plus a percentage rent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any sales tax goes to the general fund, right?
1%.
1% of the, yeah.
Yes.
So that's a substantial amount of money when we're already running negative. I think, if the subcommittee comes back in a month, we can address this as an early hit, and evaluate that quickly versus shotgunning it here. I mean, we could, and I'd like to sit down with the harbor director, we could potentially, say in the interim use Fun Factory, but we'd have to talk to Julie on that. And that's no impact because there's no money we're getting from it today. We already paid to buy it out. So there's other places that we could potentially do without a fiscal impact. And I'm not precluding that we recommend Joe's Crab Shack. I just want to have time to discuss it.
Would you be willing then to amend the motion to find a place in the harbor for an educational facility?
For who?
I'm not going to sit there and, I don't think I need to sit there and.
No, but who are we tasking?
His
City
phrasing.
council or the subcommittee?
No, the director. And the city council, or director to recommend to the city council. I wasn't tasking the subcommittee. I think the list is too short and the spaces are too few. We're not talking about a lot of permutations of the idea here. There's probably one or two. You mentioned the Fun Factory. I don't know if the Fun Factory is suitable for them or not, but they could.
Gold's Gym,
They could certainly investigate all those in no time at all, and something works or something doesn't.
To fast track one of the three that we've heard from?
I didn't mention one of the three, but frankly, there's only one. The waterfront education is the only one that's up and running, who has expressed an interest in being able to move into a facility and immediately make it start going.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, your phrasing was generic, but.
my phrasing was generic, but I was trying not to name names, but okay, I'm naming names. I don't see the harm in seeing if there is not a situation that allows them more space to get a toe in the door. And as you mentioned, start the ball rolling, or as she mentioned, start the ball rolling, and to keep their whole program up and running. And it's just, I don't see how it can be loose. Yes, there's a financial aspect of it, but we haven't even investigated what the financial aspect is from their end. It's just something to investigate.
So Director Kapovich, what do you think about?
So from what I'm hearing is we've got a couple things. We've got the vision that we want to let it run its course, and we've got an update on that next. We've got a movement or a motion to support the two educational programming ideas that we heard tonight, as well as the one that we heard in April. We have a motion to create a subcommittee to try to get the process rolling a little faster in regards to the educational facility locating on a permanent basis in the harbor. That subcommittee will essentially bridge the gap between the vision being adopted and when this permanent education facility gets rolling. And then I'm almost hearing a fourth one that says, take a look at existing spaces for existing programs that could locate there today.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
My vision was that would be part of the subcommittee and report it out quickly, but I can understand separating it. I'm just asking your opinion on that.
Okay, separating it. I mean, I think we've got clear lines here. We've got a path forward on the vision of the public amenities plan. We've got a path forward on the long-term solution for the educational facility. I think just the new component is just reaching out to some of the people we've heard in the past couple months and maybe some of the folks that we haven't yet and try to get an educational facility out there as soon as possible. It may not be, you know, the permanent long-term solution that we see even 10 years from now, but it gets somebody in there now. And I can commit to reaching out and attempting to do that.
The advantage I see to the motion is, you know, it may die immediately at the city council level, but you've given them clear and early guidance on the budget.
I got it. I understand. So my only question is the details of the motion, is that to direct Director Kapovich to come up with the solution and go straight to city council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
I thought your motion was for us to send a message to council. I misunderstood it was through.
I was recommending that Director Kapovich work with and present to city council an option.
Got it. Okay, I missed that. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I guess I just have a couple comments. Part of the thing we heard from all of them is getting grant money, you need a physical permanent address. So this doesn't like solve that problem. It doesn't help anyone to get.
I believe that with the promise of the city providing a space in Redondo Beach, in the harbor.
But no
that would be
promise for how
effective,
long
wouldn't it,
or
Julie?
where.
I had thought the same thing. Let me see
Yeah.
if I can help answer that.
Well, maybe Julie can. She's been doing it.
So the short answer is it depends on the grant. So if it's a programming grant, then you can get that, no problem. If it's a building grant, which are usually those are much more expensive, those go through, I mean, like one of the ones I totally would want to tap would be the National Foundation for Museums and Libraries. They support the Exploratorium up in San Francisco, and you know, what we want to do would fall into that. So it doesn't stop us from getting grants. There's grants from $1,500, $500, all the way up to, you know, millions of dollars. So that's not, it's the type of grant versus, so a short-term solution is fine for programming. But if you're going to put in a brand new building that's, you know, multiple stories or whatever we decide we want, that's going to take more of a commitment for those types of grants. And those grants aren't handed. It takes, you know, a couple of years for those type of grants, you know, because there's a lot of stuff in the process, so.
Yeah, and the city may be submitting for there's a lot of power in the city submitting for the grant versus, you know, a small 501c3 or one that's just formed doing that.
You're right, it's a collaboration. It'll be like the city and whichever nonprofit entity would go to whoever the granting authority is and saying that it's a handshake, definitely. It's like the city saying, this is what we want to support low affordable access to water type activities or whatever the grant's for. And then, okay, here's our entity. Maybe that entity is called Waterfront Education. Maybe it's a whole different entity that we all roll into. And it could also be, you know, a campus environment, right? That's what we had over at C-Lab. We had 4 or 5 of us operating on that same property. So there's there's a lot of ways to go about it. I think, once again, just let's get started, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think the big grants come out of, potentially a collaboration between the city and the charities, or at a minimum, they come out of the city giving a memorandum of understanding on city letterhead to each charity saying, we promise you this address for, 10 years, 50 years, whatever. And I think that comes out of the longer process, not out of this more immediate process.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah, I think my only
sorry.
hesitation is just, if we're, I guess I'm not totally clear on the motion, if we're saying, we're suggesting to take back to council to get rid of a paying renter right now on a specific place. And then the second thing is, while we are hearing a lot of community support for educational, I don't know, I just worry about if we're showing some favoritism right now for a center that sounds fabulous, but is just meeting a subset of the community where the rest of the community can't access that educational element.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And there's no doubt I'm a numbers guy, and giving up 16 grand a month doesn't happen lightly with me. But as Commissioner Light pointed out, there are a couple other locations that may fit the bill that we're getting no revenue from. And there may be a situation when the city discusses it with them. Maybe they've got some money in their budget to pay some kind of fee for Joe's Crab Shack. I don't know. All I'm really asking is that we move forward immediately to see what can happen.
Generically of.
I'm saying generically, but
location and-
let's face it, there really is only one player in the game right now that's got boots on the ground and kids in the seats.
No, I mean, location.
Oh,
of the
generic location,
city.
yes. I don't mean to, I only said Joe's Crab Shack because that's one that was kept getting brought up.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
Well, it's a prime location.
sure. But if,
I think this is a fastest path forward.
I do too.
Okay. Any further discussion on this, or should we go for a vote?
Go for a vote.
Okay. How about a roll call vote on this one? Since there was so much discussion.
Sure thing. Let's go with Commissioner Walters,
Yes.
Commissioner Light,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilroy,
yes,
Commissioner Kazan,
No,
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
and Chair Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thanks. I know this is a little out of order, but I'm always concerned when we often have a unanimous vote here because we discuss things so well. Do you feel, I understand your objections. Do you?
no, it's fine. I just
and
felt like, I think if
I
we
just
just
want to
gone
make
like
sure you
one
feel
more
like you were
month.
heard.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Cool.
I think
Okay, great.
I think if we had just gone one more month with the subcommittee, that maybe I'd probably feel better. That's all.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Are we at the end of this item, or do we need public discussion on it? No, we had public discussion.
Barry had it, yeah.
We already acted.
Yes, we did. That was quite a while ago. All right. I think we can now race on to item L3, discuss and provide input regarding the schedule of the King Harbor Public Amenities Plan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually don't even have a formal presentation. This kind of, teetered on director's report versus a discussion item. I didn't want to prohibit any discussion that you may have by putting it on the director's report. So here it is, and we kind of bled into it already. but essentially, we've been talking about the educational facility. We've got this much larger amenities plan that we're dealing with. It started in October of 2021 with a launch and listen phase with our consultants. Really, it was about listening to the community, their likes, dislikes, what they wanted in the harbor, really broad scale. And then in January of 2022, we went forward to the second phase, which is called Explore and Synthesize. That's essentially community meetings, surveys. We're throwing out options. We're throwing out something that they can tangibly look at and comment on and rank. And that actually just finished up this past April. We did a final survey, It wasn't originally planned for a second survey, but we wanted to make sure that what we had been hearing from the community was captured. And that survey actually provided a lot more detail than we even ever imagined. At this point, that survey ended April 17th. Here we are in early May right now, and our consultant is reviewing the results of that survey. What they plan on doing next, and this is the update for the commission, is that they're going to submit results of the survey on May 20th, as well as a 50% draft of the actual amenities plan. It'll be very, very rough. It'll be a draft. But that rough draft, and as well as the survey results, will actually go forward to the working committee for the amenities plan on May 23rd. So that's going to happen. Following the May 23rd meeting, on May 31st, we're going to be holding a public meeting, a community meeting, for the same reason. We're going to go over the survey results that they took, as well as they're going to see 50% draft of the plan itself. Once that's been done, they'll take pretty much all of June to take those comments, revise, and to create a 100% draft version of the amenities plan. And that's the version that'll get brought forward to the Harbor Commission and to the City Council for formal review. Okay. So we're looking at July, August, and September for that public hearing process to begin. And while the community meeting on May 31st represents the last community meeting, the public hearing process is also an opportunity for the public to chime in as well. That's the update in a nutshell, and I'm here to take any questions that you guys may have.
So is it going to be the public meeting, is that going to be an in-person workshop or?
It's likely going to be a combination. It's going to be virtual and in person. We're still kind of working through that.
Do you have any idea where it will be?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of, I don't know, personally, and I think you may get some better representation there, but I think the value is in the face-to-face, and it's tough to really get input from people who are remote, who you can't see, who aren't right there in the room. I actually think this is important enough that it's a in-person meeting. I'm disappointed that we're not going to this commission before we go to that one to get our inputs on it. I know we have representation from 3 people, but the intent was always to go from that subcommittee to a draft to us and then out to the public. And it seems like we're only getting to weigh in at the very end after a lot of concrete is starting to harden. And I'm disappointed in that. I mean, I've expressed from the last time, I'm disappointed that the process has gone the way it has, because we've had decades of public input. And I think we could have arrived here a lot quicker. And I think the last commission meeting had some change, forced some changes into it. I'm reticent to put it in front of the public. They get it cast in concrete, and then we come back and say, well, based on all our combined knowledge, we think you went the wrong way here. And then it's too late, because you won't have any other public input. They'd have to come to this meeting to hear it. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little disappointed that we're not getting to weigh in before it goes to that last public activity. And with that, I'll relinquish the floor.
Yeah, I understand that. I've struggled with that too, and how to balance input from, the very experienced people who've been involved for so long, and not have them trump the public, and not have, our voices outweigh the voices of the public. So, there is still room for guidance later in the RFP process and after this. And then there's also just the difficulty. It doesn't have to be that way. If we got to see it first and tweaked it before it went to the public, then they could say they like what we did or not. Yeah, does that necessarily give us a bigger vote than the public's vote?
I don't think so. I mean, let's face it, the surveys go out, everybody asks for everything, right? And then the way they framed the last one, I submitted to the last one, but it's still you're vectoring people in. Yeah. And so then they get set on this vectored in, and they don't think of everything, and you don't have this public discussion where they can hear why I had a concern with this, or like, I know Lisa Fox showed me, she turned in, several pages of inputs to the survey because the survey didn't have the details necessary. The public doesn't get to see that or hear it. And that's why I think there's value in having a debate here, vectoring it, and then getting a sit-down public meeting where they get to hear everybody shooting at it and throwing up ideas. That's I don't think this survey process was effective in generating a general public support. I think some broad concepts came out, I think, and I applaud that. The education facility, that wasn't something, it was kind of an afterthought when we first talked about that. Now it's a major, block. And I think getting to Mold D on that, those are two big, great things, but there's a whole lot of other discussion that came out because of that survey that the public's not going to see because of the way it was conducted.
A thing I like about the surveys and the way this was done is that for some people, it's easier to provide input at home. We had 2 people show up here tonight who submitted speaker cards and said, I'm here for support, but I don't want to speak. And sometimes I feel in these workshops, you hear from, a couple voices and you don't hear from everybody that you might hear from at home.
I think there's an effective way to see what they submit, but that's always hard to read through 100 comments.
It is, yeah.
It's tedious, and it's easier to listen, and the public will morph when they hear one person speak. They go, I didn't think of that. So their comments may have changed. In this way, it's all stovepiped. It's what I think without hearing whatever anybody else is thinking. That's my...
Okay, any other comments on the process? Or,
I'm anxious to see the first draft.
yeah. Any, straw vote in support of a public meeting?
Oh, definitely.
Well, yeah, I had made mention of that the last meeting or the meeting before, and that's why I was suggesting King Harbor Yacht Club had volunteered its space. I know it's outdoor space. Whatever came of that? Do we ever?
It's still open to us.
Still on the table. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah,
It's difficult to program that space for, a combo space of Zoom and in person. Typically, the library conference room is the only place that really handles those well, which is why I was asking if it's been upgraded. So, we could be the first group to break that in potentially.
Yeah, but I agree, though, that the in-person leads a whole different dynamic that you don't get from Zoom meetings or surveys. So I fully support having some kind of an in-person meeting before the dust settles, so to speak, or we come up with that first cut.
Okay. Any other comments on the remaining amenities plan and schedule? Okay, with that, I think we're on to director's report.
Thank you. So just a couple updates for you guys.
Sorry. We have not had public comment on item L3?
We have Craig Funavashi and Zoom. Would you like to speak? Please raise your hand.
Well, let's go to folks in the room first.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Of course.
Who's this guy?
Yeah, Craig Funavashi can just wait.
Hi, Greg.
Arkansas King Harbor voter. 2 comments. One on the schedule. I'm a bit nervous about only 8 days between the May 23rd committee meeting and the May 31st community meeting. My question you might want to chime in on this, Director, is that enough time if our committee finds some new, big, interesting changes they want to make and there's big discussion about it? Is there going to be time in just 8 days for them to try to get all that drawn up to then get out in a reasonable time for the community to comment on? My concern there would be that it's not effective, and what happens is that the consultant then ends up motivated to really only do the same drawings and basically say, here, committee, here's these drawings. 8 days later, hey, community, here's these same drawings. And our committee then is only commenting in parallel. And that is not, I believe, what the committee is supposed to do, okay? And so I'm really concerned about that 8 days just not being anywhere near enough to operate the way we probably are supposed to be operating. Second comment is relative to the Harbor Commission. You know, that last Harbor Commission meeting you guys had where you got to chime in, that was hugely effective, hugely effective. I mean, the three of you who are there are great people, but you know, normally subcommittees go back to the Harbor Commission as a whole and get the benefit of this of all seven. So I was very, very empathetic to Commissioner Light's comments. And so, yeah, I would make a strong recommendation that we, you know, chat with the, you know, city council and see, you know, says, hey, you know, can we get this back to you guys one last time? I think that would be hugely, hugely beneficial. Hope those comments are helpful.
Thanks. Okay, let's go out for Zoom comments. Has anyone raised their hands out there? Okay.
We don't have any e-comment at this time, and Craig Funavashi, his hand is not raised. Oh, he is ready to speak.
Okay. There you go. I was afraid Mark had discouraged him.
No.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Craig Funavashi. No, Mark and I, we work as a team. But what I really wanted to say, well, first of all, you know, being a fellow commissioner on another commission, I'm certainly aware of how deliberations go and how challenging timelines can be and whatnot, and totally mindful, obviously, of the harbor amenities plan and the timelines and taking this to council. The only statement that I wanted to make when you guys were deliberating previously, which kind of ties in with this as well, is I really do see the Joe's Crab Shack location as a very unique spot in the harbor. And even though it is part of the harbor and ultimately what will be developed sooner or hopefully than later, it is separated by the Seaside Lagoon, which I do understand is slated to hopefully get a $10 million influx of funds that will improve that facility. So Joe's Crab Shack facility is quite unique compared to other places in the harbor. And the point I'm making is that it is kind of unique in the sense that it could be a target right now that is really right from the presentations this evening to, again, I've heard this before from the commission this evening, to get the ball rolling. And so the only statement I would have would be one of encouragement to keep the ball rolling, to get the ball rolling faster, and maybe consider what could be done with the Joe's Crab Shack site, you know, mindful of the revenue and how that all changes and pans out with the different use. But coming back again full circle to what's been discussed this evening in the two previous presentations, that it might be a great little, I hate to call it a guinea pig, but and it does recall, you know, obviously call you guys to really put yourselves out there, but to really say, let's make an example of the Joe's Crab Shack site. We paid the $750,000. Let's really make that our test or proving grounds, if you will, and see where the rest of the harbor pans out from there. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So I'll make one last comment on the May 31st amenities plan meeting. Should we consider agendizing that as a special meeting of this commission so that we can, as discussed previously, we can all attend and comment carefully. But, you know, we could potentially address.
I would only add that adds theoretically a public hearing to the schedule that was not originally scoped out by our consultant.
Yeah, we've discussed this before for other public amenities meetings in the past. COVID always trumped it, but, you know, we were potentially doing it online, so it does add a certain amount of overhead and work, but, you know, it does, you know, potentially scratch an itch. You know, I hear the concerns on schedule. I feel like if we really saw a problem in subcommittee on the 23rd, we could stop the problem and fix it, but I'd rather not stop the schedule at this point for, you know, a theoretical problem until we see one in the report or something. So you could also trust the subcommittee to say,
I mean, we can,
this stops and
any
comes
of us
back to
can
commission.
participate in the meeting, right?
Yep.
It's just, I think it's a lot more value to have the deliberative process, but I share Mark's concern, and but I understand yours. You're on a green light schedule, but eight days does seem ambitious, but especially how long the survey's been in. And it's taken them this long to get to you guys, so.
Yeah. I'm on a green light schedule, and I've also heard from people like, I haven't weighed in because it doesn't matter what I say, because you guys are going to decide whatever you want to do yourself. So I'm really, trying not to make this something that the commission or the council ramrods through. So.
Yeah, I think if you really want to target the 31st, personally, I think it adds a lot of administrative overhead that you don't have to, we can attend anyway. So if you're going to stick with that schedule, I just say, we got to put it on our calendar and attend.
Yeah, just put it on the calendar and let's do it.
I do hope it's in person, and I hate these Zoom things. I just don't think, I think it's going to draw out a good meeting and make people disengage.
Okay, thanks. That I think we're done with the amenities plan section and on to director's report.
You got it. Just a couple updates for everybody. At the April 12th city council meeting, they went ahead and they approved $60,000 for a barge-based 4th of July fireworks show, that I think we're all used to seeing. Fireworks will start at 9 p.m. that day. On April 19th, city council did formally adopt an ordinance that does allow skateboarding along the pier, specifically on pad 10. So a little late, but it works. Also on April 19th, we did the 6th Amendment with Captain Kids, and a portion of that was them repaving their surface parking lot that's right there. So you should see that under construction this month, likely. Let's see, Beach Life Festival was also approved April 19th, where some of the revisions included increases to the facility use. It's $12,000 per day. He's utilizing 117 parking spaces, where before it was more like 50. The amplified sound on Sunday ceases at 9 p.m., where Friday and Saturdays at 10:30. And then city services for police, personnel, fire, that kind of thing, that cost was increased to $65K. Coming forth in June, we've got a couple of updates regarding the fire assessment. If you guys saw the city council meeting, gosh, maybe late April, maybe it was early May, I forget at this point, but they did a fire assessment to see what the situation was, and they directed our fire chief to report back to this commission and give you guys the update. So we're scheduling that for June 13th. And that's also the same meeting that I talked about earlier, where our finance director is going to come and talk about the budget.
So I don't mean to jump in, but rather than let you get to the end and then bring you back to
Sure,
that,
what's up?
When the city council recommended to come, or directed to come back to us, did they also make a decision on the harbor patrol? I couldn't tell.
As far as I know, they did not.
Okay, so that's still open.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And then commission application deadlines for new terms are going to be due Friday, June 10th at 5:30. I think there's only one of you that it affects, so we can get in touch later.
I had really better learn how to run a meeting if you want me to do this.
And upcoming council items, May 10th, which is tomorrow, they'll be looking at a lease at 245 North Harbor Drive, as well as a new office lease within the Pier Plaza for a women's clothing line. We talked about the budget already. June 13th, finance director's coming. We are scheduled for, sorry, let me go backwards. June 13th is our next scheduled Harbor Commission meeting. We do have the finance director to show up and do a presentation on the budget. She's also going to go to city council on June 21st. So the formal proposal to council will be just 7 days later. I know that this council or this commission likes to submit a letter, commenting or supporting the proposed budget. That does leave us about 7 or 8 days to do that. At the June 13th hearing, we could nominate a subcommittee or something to formally draft the letter.
Are we going to get it ahead of time so we can review it before the? finance director comes in? Because that's the bigger thing, is it's a big document to sit here and absorb it in one meeting.
I get it, yeah. I can speak with the finance director on how best to handle that because it is such a large document. I mean, in the perfect world, the agenda report summarizes everything, but obviously when you're talking about something this large, it's just almost impossible for an agenda report to capture everything. So the best I can tell you is I can get with the finance director and try to strategize how best to get that to you.
Okay, I'm going to complain if we have to sit here and listen to a briefing and then say, what do you think? Without anything to review ahead of time. It's just not good input.
Right.
Well, the document itself may be huge, but it's the uplands, the tidelands, the decision packages, right?
Related to the harbor, yeah.
Related to the harbor. Those are the key documents in there, or the key pages in there. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
We can try to extract some of that information, make it available.
Yeah, and getting them like tonight as blue folder items is worthless.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well just throw it in front of us at the meeting, because getting a couple extra hours to look at something that complicated is just worthless.
Understood. And that actually concludes my director's report.
Thanks. I had a question for you about one of the April council meetings as well.
Yeah.
In one of those, there was some funding for the pier railing project, and the numbers were larger than I expected. And I was wondering if that was consistent with previous expenditures. It looks like it was $512,000 from Tidelands funds for the railing improvement project, and then it looks like $1.5 million from the general fund for the railing improvement project.
I don't have that information in front of me. That's something I could follow up with you on.
Okay.
And I can follow up with with everybody.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I can send this to you. I have a cut and paste from an agenda, but I don't have the date of that agenda, which is less helpful. So I'll get that and get back to you. And I think that was in one of the packages that they, voted and approved.
Sure.
In bulk.
Like a consent item?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just a larger dollar value than I was expecting for, no notice to us and for railing improvements.
Sure. Okay.
Sorry, Commissioner Light, go ahead.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, couple questions. Where are we at on the skate park?
So construction has been delayed. The soonest it's going to start is June, but we're still unsure about that because of material delays of getting materials on site. In a perfect world, it was supposed to be under construction in May.
Okay. I thought last time we heard that there was a evaluation of the parking structure going on. And that was due to come in. Has that come in?
When you say evaluation, just like general maintenance evaluation of?
No, the structural, they go through the structural assessment of the parking structure and recommendations on maintenance.
Was that the work being done in the Fun Factory area?
Pardon?
Was that the work being done in the Fun Factory area?
It was an overall assessment. We talked about it last time, or it was in a council meeting, where that was due to come out, I think, last month.
Well, there was a 2019.
Walker, I think, is the company that
there was a 2019 study done by Walker, which essentially created like a 30-year plan for what's going to be required on a lot of the infrastructure in the waterfront, but the parking structures were included. Within that report, it talked about an immediate 5-year kind of plan of action.
So I read that 2019 report. There was supposed to be an update that was imminent to that plan. They were coming in to relook at it, to reevaluate whether the stuff they'd done was successful and whether there's other things they need to accelerate.
Yeah, there's going to be more invasive evaluation in the Fun Factory area, since there's good access to that. It's
Right.
open and unused, and it was kind of a follow-on to the condominium collapse in Florida.
So you don't know anything about that?
I don't know. Laura, do you have any information there?
If I may, Director Kapovich. You are correct because of the incident in Florida. It was approximately 5 years. It was due to get an update on that. So I believe our engineering department has that, and we could possibly bring that back the next meeting to give you some more details, but as it's getting late, I'm starting to suck. As Chair Carlson mentioned, one aspect that they are seriously looking at is, what work needs to be done from the interior of the Fun Factory. Because there is no tenant, now is the time to get in there and do some work. So we will bring some more additional information for you.
Perfect. And then the last thing was, we kind of glossed over beach life, but we asked last time, what are the specifics? How's the harbor going to be affected by beach life before we had a marine exclusion zone set up? And, we were told that those were still in formulation. Now we're a couple days away. What's going to happen in the harbor with respect to beach life?
Lori?
You turned it off.
You turned it off.
There you go.
Finicky.
Could you give us a little bit more of more details in terms of what information you're looking for?
Well, last time you had you put out the string of lights and people weren't allowed to circle in close to the break wall. The first year they had some sailboats with actual advertisements on them sailing constantly around there, and other boats were coming in, so that was considered a hazard. Then they created I think they called it a temporary marine exclusion zone.
Yeah, the boating community was made aware of it in advance.
So,
yes, I believe that everyone involved was very happy with that process of last year.
And I asked last time, are we going to do that again? And I was told we don't know.
Yeah. My understanding is it is being done again. We should have asked Captain May when he was here.
That's what I was going to, but he left.
But like I said, everyone was very happy with the results of that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the impact to the boating community is. Obviously we're going to shut down the hand launch. We had an alternate before, right? We established an alternate hand launch for the 3 days. We haven't heard any details. So I asked last time, it was, we don't know yet.
If I may, I know there's a flashing road sign up on 190th, and there may be other things out there. You might want to send out something on Nixle, both for surface traffic and any effect on cars and also on boats. Or, potentially put something on the city's website or something like that. Use one of the available social media channels to let us know where we can drive our cars and boats and, what's affected. Thanks.
I just feel like if we don't know, how's the rest of the boating community going to know?
Yeah. Anything else?
All right, that's it. Those were
Okay,
my
any
three.
other questions?
No?
I had one go back that I'd overlooked, I apologize. Any update on the liveaboard situation or water quality in the harbor? Or that was a little bit before your time, but I'm wondering if you'd heard anything about that.
No formal update. I mean, we are still hearing complaints about some of the rental increases down there. Obviously, there's, not too much we can do about price increases other than talking to the owners themselves. But barring that, no other information, no other updates.
Okay. Do you know if the city attorney is working toward anything with regard to maintaining liveaboards in the harbor?
I don't, but I can actually look into that for you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Any other questions on the director's report? Okay, moving on to item N then. Items from staff. Anything for us? We've probably covered that with the director's report.
Comments?
I don't have anything formal, no.
All right, commission items and referrals to staff. I'll go around the room. Anyone have any referrals to staff? Gentlemen? Okay, we are on to item O then.
Motion to adjourn.
Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone. Thanks for coming back to City Hall.
Just a reminder, guys, don't have to log out, shut down, restart, none of it. Just, you could just walk away. Feel free to close out any kind of browsers or anything, but you don't have to restart anything or anything like that.